Good evening and welcome to Paul Ricard for round 10 of the Simsport Racing Season 3 GT3 Championship. This evening I'm joined by Chris Buxton in the virtual commentary box as the voice of Simsport. Alex Goldschmidt is on his European karting commentary duties. Good evening, Chris, and welcome along to what promises to be an extremely fast, tactical, close race over the next couple of hours. How are you doing, buddy?
Very well, thank you very much for that introduction, Steve. Yes, looking forward to this. We've got 2 hours of Paul Ricard plus a 30-minute qualifying session to precede it. Around about 20 cars going to be great in this circuit. It's going to be all down to how well they handle their slipstream more than most others, but there's several very, very common hotspots. Turn 1 is going to be something that the drivers need to be aware of. Although the start-finish straight is not particularly long, it's very, very, very easy to just barrel off into the sunset. Turn 8, the turn 8 and 9 chicane in the middle of the back straight. Again, it's very easy to get that wrong. You're on the gas for quite a while, especially if you're under pressure. It's going to be an easy hotspot a hotspot to expect mistakes. Turns 10 as well. It's easy to run off wide, although you can try and rejoin the track before you get to that long turn 11, but that is a really deceptive corner as it does tighten towards the end. So I'm sure our drivers have put in a lot of practice for this, so I really can't wait to see how this all shakes out.
Absolutely, yeah, they have. And I mean, just looking at the championship standings now, we've got Archie Clifford Roberts in first place with an absolutely commanding lead, and it's going to take one hell of a mishap, I think, this evening for James Hartnell, who's in second place, to catch him. Chris Crossman third, Regan Mitchell fourth, Dave Hedges in fifth, Stephen Haley in sixth, Lucas Kakos in his Lamborghini in seventh, Dean Riley in eighth, Aaron Walker ninth, Rich Smith rounding out the top 10 with Mark Neutlings in 11th, Kev Critchley in 12th, Christopher Pinchbeck in 13th, Gav Utley 14th, and Adam Azelovich in 15th. We can see there's a very big spread of points there, but it's still all to play for in the midfield.
Very much so. The gap third to eighth was less than 100 points from that entire spread. Now looking at the teams championship, the editors at the top with their Audi by, again, a very commanding lead, 124 points, quick maths off the top of my head. But then it's really Tempesta have got a bit of a gap over Hitasuma. But again, these aren't insurmountable. There's lots of shuffling that could well go on. BD Racing 4th, RPM in 5th, Barwell in 6th, RSM Motorsport in 7th, Rinaldi 8th, Dutch Desire 9 and Apex rounding out the top 10. Again, 6 points between the Rinaldi Racing Ferraris and the Dutch Desire Bentleys. So, yeah, there's still plenty of positions to scrap for. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and let's not forget 2-hour race this evening. The winner takes 100 points. So, you know, while some of those gaps are big, the points on offer this evening are equally as big. So everything's to play for, and these guys are certainly going to battle hard. And as you mentioned, Chris, they have very much been practicing hard. I know for a fact there's been some very quick times on the servers, some very close times. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be one hell of a race for 2 hours. I mean, not to mention the psychedelic attack on the eyes with all those green and red rumble strips in some of those long corners. And as you say, the patience is going to be key, because some of those really long hanging corners where you almost have to take a double apex as they tighten up on you, they can really take the life out of the tyres if you push too hard in corners like that.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, those stripes are a little bit divisive on opinion. I think they're a little bit epilepsy-inducing. But they are what they are. They serve a purpose, and they certainly highlight the corner that you're in at the time. But yeah, I mean, there's the 8-9 chicane, for instance. If you have a momentary lapse of concentration, you are sailing through the middle. If you're having a battle with someone and they don't give you enough room, you're going to be shoved off the road. You can potentially spin and lose a lot of time. And after a couple of hours, whilst a lot of these drivers are probably used to the longer scale event, fatigue is still going to be there. So, yeah, these drivers have got to keep their cool for a very long period of time. Also, Archie Clifford Roberts, our championship leader, once again setting the benchmark in practice with a 1:53.5 being his best time, and not many people getting particularly close to that. So he's putting out the marker of I'm pushing to the very final checkered flag.
Yeah, and I happen to know that Archie's personal best at Paul Ricard, albeit it was in a Lamborghini and not the Audi he's driving tonight, was a 152.8. His best in the Audi, I believe, is a 53.2. So he's got a little bit more time to come. Some of the other guys, Chris Crossman, he's done a 53.4, so he's not far away. You know, it's we have to wait and see what turns out this evening on Paul Ricard.
It's all well and good being quick over a single lap. But I'm certainly not questioning Archie's ability to win races, because look at the championship points alone. That'll tell you how well he's able to convert that one lap pace into many, many laps and very consistently. But all it takes is one mistake, and it's not always your mistake that you're having to recover from. So you can't just assume that Clifford Roberts are going to run away with it, although the odds are rather stacked in his favour.
They are indeed. And I mean, I think, to be fair, let's just have a look at a hot lap around Paul Ricard now and just see what the guys are up against this evening, and see how fast this track can be taken.
Welcome on board for the hot lap here at Paul Ricard, based just out of Marseille in France, in the fearsome Porsche 911 GT3R. Down into S de la Verrerie, here at Paul Ricard, into the left and then into the right at about third gear. Now the run down to Virage de l'Hôtel at about fourth gear, now going up to fifth. Braking from around about 230 on the speedo into Virage de l'Hôtel and then Virage du Camp, which is a tight right-hander taken at around about second gear at 85 on the speedo. Now into the Virage de la Sainte-Baume, which is the left-hander taken at third gear at around 185 on the exit. Now the fearsome long straightaway, simply known as Mistral, accelerating through from fifth, bouncing off the rev limiter at about 250. You go up into sixth gear on the speedo, and before you hit the braking zone, before Courbe de Cygne, you will be bouncing off the rev limiter at top gear, sixth gear, 275 kilometers an hour, and you go into the corner at around 50 meters on the marker boards on the left-hand side, drop down to fifth. You're pushing at about 230, you run a little bit wide into the Double Droite de Bossette, taken first at third gear, and then you drop down to second at around about 135 on the apex. Next up, it's the left-hander, as you go up to fourth briefly before dropping down to third and even second through Virage de Bendor, through the left-hander. Now up the gears through third, up to fourth at about 190, 200 kph through Courbe de Garbalin before the left-hander at Virage de la Tour, which is taken at second gear at about 125 kilometers an hour. Then through the final corner, simply known as Virage du Pont, accelerating across towards the finish line, completing the lap in 1 minute 53.5 seconds.
We're now into qualifying. These guys have started the 20-minute session. We've got 16 minutes and 25 seconds left, and it's raining. What more could we ask for? What more could we ask for?
The drivers have just looked skywards and said something we can't broadcast, because this track in the rain is very hard work.
I was talking with the drivers before this session started, and there was a few questions to have you got a wet setup, and the majority of the answers were no. So this is going to be very much the dry setup, maybe raise the ride height ever so slightly, and obviously wet tyres on there, and just see what happens. I believe they'll play with the traction control, they will adjust the ABS and maybe play with the brake bias a little bit. To be fair, ACC, as realistic as it is, he's pretty forgiving in the respect that if you make those few minor adjustments, you can get your car around in these conditions.
That as it may be, but who has practiced in the rain? The biggest difference is your braking point. If you've practiced and practiced and practiced in the dry, whilst your braking point will be fairly similar, because you're not hitting those braking points quite as fast as you would in the dry, it's still going to be very subtly different. And again, it's going to be how well these drivers can adapt under pressure. And we're expecting there to be a lot of pressure. There's going to be a lot of slipstreaming or what have you going on. So, yeah, who has put in that wet practice, I wonder?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, though, I mean, this is qualifying, so it's a wet session for qualifying. Qualifying is on the Saturday. The race is on the Sunday on the server, so the race could still be dry. And all that we could see here is that qualifying really shakes that grid up a little bit and makes the race a lot more interesting than it might once be.
What a shame.
But yeah, Ruddock setting the pace early on in his Lamborghini with a 2:02. Now we know the Lamborghini is a pretty quick car around here anyway, with this massive long straight at the back of the track where the cars are hitting around about, the Lamborghini I believe is 177 miles an hour by the end of the straight and into the braking zone for turn 10 I believe it is.
Well, it is technically turn 10 because they're not using that chicane, which is 8 and 9, so turns 8 and 9 are non-existent in this race, which is absolutely fine. Oh, look how the Lamborghinis is misbehaving as we're hitting the braking zone for 11. It just did not want to, stay settled. That's the last thing. Well, turning left into a right-hander is not usually the greatest way of doing things, and that's an Audi that's parked on the outside. Has not done things too well. But there you go. That goes to show how difficult it is to wrestle these cars around these conditions. Now, the Lamborghini is a little bit more, it's a longer wheelbase, can adapt to the driving conditions a bit easier. Oh, that was a little close.
Yeah, I mean, just reflecting Yannick Muller in chat. Good evening, Yannick. Hope you're well, buddy. One of our regular racers. He just has 2 hours of Paul Ricard in the wet. Man, I'm happy I don't have to do this. So, Yannick, next season, buddy, we'll get you in the GT3s. But yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you were talking in the build-up about the concentration levels, and if it does transpire that it's raining in the race, yeah, that just adds to it. The concentration is through the roof, and it is very, very, I won't say stressful, but it's very intense. The level of concentration just has to go up that extra notch, and it becomes very difficult, very mentally draining, and the mistakes may well start to creeping in the latter stages of the race.
I would be surprised if they didn't. When the mental energy has been used up and the mistakes are easier to make, and like I said earlier, it may not necessarily be your mistake. It could be you're just caught up in someone else's incident, of which I expect there to be a few. No disrespect to our drivers at all. They are some of the best on this platform and would have again practiced this circuit. They know where every single bump is. They could probably tell you how many stripes there are on turn 4, for instance. But again, the wet weather is always the biggest. A lot of people say it's an equalizer. I've never been entirely convinced by that because not everybody adapts to the rain, but he definitely is usually a deck shuffler. Prime example, Mr. Clifford Roberts, our championship leader, is currently down in 7th. Now, we can assume that he hasn't set a representative lap yet, although his time, well, in fairness, it's a 2:03.1 that he's got on the board, and he's just jumped up to 7th, hasn't he? Yeah.
Just going to jump in there, Chris. Interestingly, we're just on board with Daniel Parker, one of our Jaguar drivers, and his teammate, I see, is very close behind him. So I'm wondering if they're trying to maybe play the team game and give him a bit of an extra slipstream down the straight to, maybe just try and edge those Jaguars a little bit further up the grid, because they aren't the quickest and aren't the easiest cars to handle. But yeah, good to see them if they are using that team tactic.
Well, look how much the trailing Jaguar is gaining. So there is definitely time to be made, and the straight is long enough for that gain to be pretty cut. There you go.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was spot on. Absolutely spot on. I was just thinking, surely he's going to hit a braking zone in a minute. And just as I had that thought, he then jumped out of the way. So very nicely done by Daniel Parker there to give... that's Pixley, isn't it?
Yeah, Richard Pixley, yeah.
Oh, as we just saw Pixley coming back into the shot, I wonder whether he just went a little too deep. I said it was easy to do. It's easy to do in the dry, let alone in the wet. Coming out of turn 10 into 11. Hopefully he hasn't just binned that advantage he's just gained. But they won't be the only ones to do that. Oh, wow, it's close up top. Chris Crossman. Well, that is still close between Crossman and Ruddock. Now Regan Mitchell has just set the new pole time. I'm expecting that pole time to continue to drop. And my goodness me, 15 thousandths of a second between Jordan Ruddock and Chris Crossman. Yes, please, we'll have some of this. Mercedes leads Porsche, leads Lamborghini, leads Audi. Again, no one dominant mark, although there is a series of Audis, of course, but lovely. Bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Detox in chat says, Paul Ricard, Rain, better grab the popcorn then. Steve Hinden, good evening, Steve. Hope you're well, buddy. Good luck to all. Mr. Haley is a demon in the wet. Should be an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, these conditions will certainly, they are a leveller to a degree. Obviously, as you say, we've got Archie Clifford-Roberts, our runaway championship leader, in 7th. His closest rival, James Hartnell, currently in 12th. So, I mean, that just goes to show what it's actually doing, you know. And Steve Hindon mentions Steve Haley. He's up in 6th at the minute in the Audi. Now, I do know from personally racing against him, Steve is pretty consistent, wet or dry. So, yeah, if it rains on the race server on race day, he will be up there. He'll be in the top 6 for sure.
That's very unforgiving weather. Look at the rain just streaming down. Although there is a line you can see that the drivers have been running on. Steve Haley looked like he was a little deep coming through 15, but keeps it going nonetheless. Did he improve? Yeah, he did. 2:01.5. So that whilst that last corner looked a little bit clumsy, and the only reason that's the case is it's so slow. Racing cars not designed to do slow. They're very much designed for the opposite end of the spectrum. So they do get very clumsy, very awkward at the slower speed. So yeah, cracking time then from Stephen Haley. That 2:01.587. Benchmark keeps changing as we're on board now with James Hartnell. The Tempesta car sweeping his way onto the back straight. Oh no, I beg your pardon, wrong corner.
Just pushing a little bit wide there, wasn't it? Just trying to, just that bit too hard. But I totally agree with you. The times are going to keep coming down ever so slightly because the guys are obviously, getting used to these conditions. And as we can see, James is still pushing very hard. He's just going into the last turn now onto the start-finish straight. So let's see if he can haul himself up that leaderboard, because he's a long way down at the moment in 13th place. I would expect him to at least be in the top 8, but let's see what this does for him.
Not a lot, unfortunately. He remains in 13th position in the Ferrari, but still 8 minutes of the qualifying session to go. There's still time enough for these drivers to improve. Now Archie Clifford-Roberts is on the move then. He's got 6/10. He's got a bit more than that too, fine, but that's still going to elevate him further up the field. He's going to be getting into some kind of third row territory, which is not something you would typically expect of Clifford-Roberts. You would usually expect him at the very sharp end, but yeah, perhaps the Audi is not a particularly happy beast in the wet. It's a great car. It's pretty much certainly in the hands of Clifford-Roberts. Any car is pretty much good anywhere, in fairness. But at the moment, things not going his way. In the middle of the pack is not an ideal place to defend his championship. But there's another caveat there. He doesn't need to dominate the field. He will want to. Every driver wants to. Let's be honest about that. But he doesn't need to. He's got that comfortable lead. He doesn't need to do anything silly. He just needs to bring it home.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but like you say, you don't want to be in the middle of the field, because even if it does, and he goes fastest. Wow. Okay, actually, yeah, he's brought his A game in the rain. He's there on pole position by 1.5 tenths for round figures. So it's still close. We've got just under 7 minutes left, 6 minutes 40 seconds. So there's still time, and we've got Dave Hedges, Archie Clifford-Roberts' teammate, on a fast lap in 4th place at the minute. He's only half a second off pole position, so a small improvement here and there could see him challenging for that front row. But I don't think we've seen the last of Mr. Haley or Mr. Mitchell yet. And I don't want to write off James Hartnell down in 13th. I think if he can get that lap together, he will be up there in the top 6, I believe.
Quite agree. As we switch to Peter Robert in the 32 Audi, just coming towards the... I'm struggling to identify where he is. All the twisty bits look very similar.
It's all those stripes, mate. It's all those stripes.
It is. That's towards the end of the lap, I think. That's 14, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, heavy on the brakes. That's 15, yeah. So coming to the end of his lap now. Oh, and the tail did not want to behave itself. That would have cost him a 10th or 2. He's half a second behind Dean Riley at the moment. And as we switch to replay of...
Yeah, Jeffrey Wolf in the yellow Ferrari, I believe it is.
There he is. That's distinctly coloured.
That's taking too much curb and just... backwards.
Oh, no. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to stop in time.
Yeah, there's not enough abrasion on the circuit to go drifting offline tonight. Certainly, you need to keep it on that, I would say, racing line, because it is the best area for grip. Although it has to be said, some of the tactics in ACC, you see some of the drivers when they're on the straights actually running onto the wet lines just to cool the tyres a little bit more, and just to aid the longevity of the tyres.
Yeah, these things do not like heat. Well, don't like excessive heat. I mean, you've got to argue that no tyre does. But these things will overheat really, really quickly if they don't get a decent amount of water. They are designed to lift a ridiculous amount of water. They're very, very effective at making sure or maximizing the amount of rubber to road ratio. And oh my goodness, Clifford Roberts has done it again. He's taken another 10.5 off of that time now at 201.2. There's a lot of zeros in there. I immediately approve. And then 3/10 behind exactly is Stephen Haley. So once again, it's our championship leader at the top of the field. We now look at Paul Lindsay in the Porsche, whereas he's in the twisty section, so 12, 13, 14, I think. Or was he at the beginning of the lap? That looks like the end of it to me. So in the 21 Porsche, seeing how that lap transferred. There's James Hartnell in the 168 Ferrari.
He's just improved up to 10th place. Not sort of probably on the timings he would expect. He's a second off the pace at the moment, but obviously 2 hours of racing is a long way to go. We've still got 3 minutes and 45 seconds of qualifying, so still enough time to get another fast lap in. If you're out on track now, no problem at all. But you're going to have to make it count now at this point. You've got no more second chances. You're going to have to get around there, toot sharp, and get that lap time in.
Yep, it's getting towards the do or die, feast or famine time as the seconds tick away. There's been Regan Mitchell has set a time 2:01.398. So he's on the front row at the moment. So a good improvement, but still just that little bit behind the mighty Clifford Roberts. Ranjiv Kalsi in the 47.
Yeah, Ranjiv, he's not the fastest driver by his own admission in dry conditions, but in the wet, he seems to sort of come alive a little bit. And I think the Ferrari, he just gels with it, and he does, he's not going to be winning races in the wet, but he's going to be finishing a lot further up than he would in the dry. He's a pretty consistent driver when it comes to the wet weather.
Yeah, some people just naturally suit the wet weather driving. I'm personally not a fan of it, although it really depends on how well people handle sliding and oversteer. Anyone that can handle a more loose kind of car tend to adapt to the wet weather, in my experience at least, easier than those that need it. Maybe a more understeery car or more of a stable, I know which direction the nose and tail are going to go, as to those that like the kind of chuck it in and deal with it when you get there kind of driver style. Not criticizing either of those styles. They work very well depending on who's operating them. But I'm more of a keep it steady kind of person. So wet weather doesn't tend to work very well for me as we switch to, I think he's our lone Mercedes, isn't he, Chris Bowman? In the 12 car, yep, he's the solo.
We've got Regan Mitchell up in second place.
I beg your pardon. Yes, Regan Mitchell is the second mark, or a very underrepresented mark, as Clifford Roberts has decided to call it a day. He's not torturing our drivers any further by keep improving that pole time. As Bowman then getting into the last sector, one of the Lexuses, Rich Smith, car number 76.
Yeah, Rich Smith's been just to mention, he's been a really good driver this season. It's his first season with Simsport, and he's improved round after round. He's had some bad luck in some races, been involved in incidents not through his own making, but he does put the time in, puts lots of time in practicing in the GT4s and the GT3s, and I think 8th place is a fairly respectable place for him to be, and he's one to watch in the race as well, because he's not slow. If he can just keep out of trouble, he'll be there or thereabouts. Top 8 finish.
Jordan Ruddock has set another time into a 1:5.90. That's 4th position in the Lamborghini. Nicely done, just 900ths of a second behind Stephen Haley. Coming back to what I was saying about Rich Smith, if he finds a little bit over 2/10, he'll jump up to what is now 5th. He'll find 4 positions from where he is. That's how close that clump is, and really Dean Riley right behind is only half a tenth off, so that pack is very, very close. Again, Hartnell is only another 400ths behind Riley, so there's a really, really close contingent in that sort of top end of the midfield there as we jump to again back to the Audi of Peter Hrober. He's going onto the back straight, steady. Yep, there's another hot spot. You can just power on too early, especially in the wet from turn 7, and just sail off into the Although you've got enough time to get back on track, but you're going to be pushing the track limits if you keep doing that.
The clock's just hit 0, so the guys have got to be on your lap now and finish your current lap to count. Obviously, there is enough overweight time that if you cross the line literally with a second to go, you will get that lap in. But just interestingly, third place in the championship, it's between Chris Crossman in 6th place, Dave Hedges in 5th, and Regan Mitchell in 2nd. So very much so Regan Mitchell holding the trump card at the moment regarding qualifying for that 3rd place in the championship. Those guys will be battling hard. As I was talking to Chris Crossman before the race tonight, and he said that was his main aim. He was keeping an eye on Dave Hedges and Regan Mitchell, and unfortunately for Chris, he's not managed to get the Porsche in front of those guys, so he's got it all to do in the race.
Yeah, but the race is where the points are earned, and where the mistakes are more costly. As we see Hiroba coming to the end of his lap, what can he do here? Currently 8th position with a 2:02.130, and that's 5th. Exactly what I said. If he found 2 and a bit tenths, that's exactly what he's done. He's found a little bit more than that, actually. Nicely done. 5th position now. That is 2:01.755. Nicely done. He becomes, the 3rd Audi?
Yeah. Chris Pinchbeck, it's retired to the pits, so he wasn't on a better lap. So that concludes qualifying, I believe.
Does indeed. It's Archie Clifford Roberts on the front, where he wants to be by a couple of tenths over Regan Mitchell for the front row. Row 2, it's going to be Stephen Haley and Jordan Ruddock. Row 3, Peter Hiroba and Dave Hedges. Row 4, James Hartnell and Chris Crossman. Row 5, Rich Smith and Dean Riley. Then row 6 is Christopher Pinchback and Adam need to get this right, Isilovich?
Isilovich, yeah.
Isilovich, I wasn't far off. Row 7 is Jeffrey Wolf and Ranjiv Kalsi. Row 8 is Martin Degala and Richard Pixley. Row 9 is Roberto Santaro and Chris Bowman. And row 10 is Reese Wiggin and Daniel Parker. There is a 21st, but I've forgotten who they are, I'm afraid.
No problem. I mean, Pixley in 16th with Jag, it's just a reasonable sort of position for him to be in. And Daniel Parker, he had to have a couple of rounds out due to an injury. He couldn't actually drive. He'd injured his hand, so he's sort of coming back to the season now, just for the tail end, just for practice. So, they'll be looking to do something in the race. I'm thinking those guys will be hoping for rain, just to level the playing field a little bit, to get the Jag up onto higher things.
What will the drivers think? Let's see what they think about it. Just keeping up with those in chat. Welcoming all those that are joining us for the live stream.
Yeah, just getting a comment from Nicholas in the YouTube there. We've got shockingly characterless racetrack. Not hard to believe this was an ex-test track. Well, yeah, I mean, it maybe the racetrack's characterless, but the cars and these drivers certainly aren't, and we're going to have some good racing this evening, as it is actually raining for race day as well. So this is going to be far from characterless.
Oh my. Now then, this is going to, again, force more on the concentration levels. So, again, one of the things you have to kind of overcome, where your braking zones are, all that muscle memory for the dry, it's adapting that to the wet. And in lap 1, when the field is this condensed, there's going to be several big areas where that could come to blows. Turn 1 is not a particularly heavy braking zone into turn 1, but of course it gets very, very crowded as they stream through there. Turn 3, they're coming back down the gearbox again. And, turns 3 through to 6 is very tight. And it's going to get very, very crowded. So that's going to be interesting. And then the first time they come through 10 and 11, who's going to sail off into local France? We will see who manages the start of this race well.
I was just going to ask, are we awarding points for sort of turn 10 at the end of the long straight to see who can run the widest the first time through there? Because you can imagine the slipstreams that they're all going to pick up down there, the spray, so the visibility is going to be bad, and then obviously they're going to be on overspeed going into that corner, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see a good half dozen or so cars running very, very wide. And let's not forget, they do get track limit warnings in ACC, so if you get warned 4 times, on the 4th time you do have to suffer a drive-through, and that's in 2 hours of racing, so I'm sure we may see 1 or 2 drive-throughs this evening as well.
I wouldn't be at all surprised. Like you say, I fully agree. We're going to see a few exploratory efforts on the outside of turn 10 in particular. Of course, they've been on the gas all the way through turn 7. Turns 8 and 9 are ignored in this layout. So, they haven't had that preparatory braking zone that breaks up that back straight in other layouts. So they're going into that with as many horses as they can put down to the rubber. And like you say, they've got overspeed. They have to think on the fly on when to brake. And if someone behind them hasn't got that right, that's going to get very, very messy. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Absolutely, and Detox says he's going to need some more popcorn and beer, thus it's going to be spicy. Let's go, boys. Yeah, definitely going to be spicy. And get that beer so you don't have to leave the screen and get stocked up and get supplies in, and stay tuned, because the racing is going to be fast, hard, and very, very, as I said earlier, very tactical this evening, especially if the conditions start to change on the server with the time advancement. Spicy popcorn, that's a new one. Maybe you should try that. Maybe. I must admit, it's not really appealing to me at this moment. If it was some spicy nuts or something like that, then maybe. But popcorn, no, not quite. Now you're talking my language. I'm right there with you. I mean, I'll give anything a try once. but if you were on the grid tonight, Chris, and you were actually Clifford Roberts, and you were in that first pole position, first in the championship, it's raining hard. You're maybe not going to be able to run away with this because we saw the qualifying times were close. What would your tactics be into that first corner? Careful consistency, basically. He knows he's got that big advantage, and if he is just blown into oblivion and doesn't score any points at all, the lead, whilst comfortable, is not insurmountable. So he just needs to see the checkered flag after 2 hours, and that would be what I would be focusing on. Just staying out of trouble, just keeping it clean. Hit your braking point at where you think is going to be the right place. Oh, look at the spray already. That rain is absolutely hooning it down. So that is, well, Clifford Roberts won't care in the first lap unless he has an absolute terrible start. But then he's been in the lead. He's been under pressure many a time. He knows how to deal with this. So I would think he will be cautious. If he has to sacrifice maybe the lead to save a big incident, I would imagine he'll do that. So whether he'll win after 2 hours, well, only time will tell. Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about the man that's been leading the championship since round 2. I mean, at round 1, the Nurburgring, he didn't have the best of races. I believe he came third after he had a bit of a spin while leading, and was demoted to third place, but then he came back at Silverstone round 2, took the checkered flag there after, I think it was a 90-minute race there, where he was under pressure the whole way from Kevin Critchley, but he managed to, not to make mistakes under pressure there and bring it home for the win, and he's not looked back since then. He's led the championship all the way for the last, well, this championship's been going on for 20 weeks now. This is the final round. This is it. The season champion, if he does it right, Archie Clifford Roberts tonight will be crowned season champion for the GT3 Simsport Racing Championship. That's not a bad place to be, is it, when third is a bad race? That's a pretty. But then, he's put in the time, he's put in the practice, and he's got the skill. You can't take it away from him for anything at all. He's done absolutely brilliantly well to maintain the consistent results he needs, and it all comes down to this essentially. And we'll just have to see how well he can hold on to that. But like we say, disconnects happen, other accidents happen. It's not all done and dusted just yet. And of course, we've got that amazing midfield battle to look forward to. So there's going to be plenty of places that we can look for some great racing action. Yeah, absolutely. And as you said there, Archie is a very, very talented driver. He's very, very quick, but also very consistent. He can put those times in lap after lap. I think it's just the fact that in these wet conditions it is easier to make those little mistakes. And with the drivers all in close sort of attention in the first few laps, if you make that mistake, you open up the door for someone to maybe try and slide through on the inside. It's going to be very difficult for him to run away with it this evening. And there's the strategy as well. Obviously, it's 2 pit stops. You don't have to take tyres at both pit stops. You do have to just take some fuel. So it's an open strategy in that respect. So there's a bit of a tactical thing there. Although with the rain, I believe they'll probably all just take one set of tyres. that should suffice this evening.
Coming towards the end of the formation lap then, you can see the 2x2 grid is being formed, although very fidgety, as a few people still warming up brakes and what have you. But at this point, I believe there's no damage actually incurred if someone actually runs into some of the ghosts. So
that's correct.
They don't cause damage until the green light is on, which we won't get until, of course, we're on the start-finish straight. But this is when the nerves will get very jangled. This is when things will get very, very interesting. Who's now on board and sitting on the top left panel with Clifford Roberts. He's on the left-hand side. And when the light goes green is when he will floor it to signify the beginning of the final race of the season then. The grid is formed and it should be going any second. Still hasn't gone. Bang! There we go. We are racing here. And that's a drive-through already, unfortunately, for Rich Smith. He was a little bit too eager to get on the gas. Lots of fighting going on. 3 wide as we look into the bottom panel. Oh, no, there's trouble. That's someone that's gone off ahead of Chris Pinchback. Oh, they did very well to hang on to that. Oh, there was a bit of a tap there at the tail end of the field. That's such a shame. They'll fall through the field.
That was amazing driving from the rest of the guys to avoid Rich Smith there, who had a bit of a spin in the Lexus. Absolutely awesome. Could have been a lot worse. But actually, Clifford Roberts doing what he needs to do and just getting away in the lead at the moment. But Regan Mitchell following up in second place. All in very, very close attention as we're just streaming through the corners now. And this is where we're coming out now onto the long straight in a couple of corners' time. And this is where it's going to tell.
Yeah. Is Smith nailed? No, Clifford Roberts is still in the lead. I thought for a second that Smith was ahead of Clifford Roberts. I was like, wow, that's an impressive recovery. But now looking at Jordan Ruddock, 4th position in the Lamborghini. This is where the slipstream is going to come good. They've got to be careful. They're very bunched up and the spray is going to be very unforgiving. So I think it will take a few laps before we start seeing people really trying to force the move. Because the opportunity presents itself, I'm sure they're not going to turn it down. Regan Mitchell second in the Mercedes. Third is Stephen Haley. Although, is he just... Oh, yeah, well, there you go. We just seen someone go wide on turn 10. You called that one happening, and that was still side by side. Whoop, there goes another one that's going wide on 11. So, yeah, a few people getting those exploratory laps in. It looks like Roberto Santaro's in trouble, falling through the field. Oh, he was in trouble earlier in the lap, was he?
He was, yeah, but Haley has got that job done, although the leaderboard's not updated. But Haley is up to second place now, so he's demoted Mitchell to third. Ruddock's in close attention in fourth, and knowing Jordan from past races, he'll push Regan very, very hard, and I would expect him to try and make a move, although Regan is a seasoned master when it comes to defending and attacking.
Audi leads, Mercedes leads, Audi leads Lamborghini as we come over the line to end the first lap. Clifford Roberts leads, Haley leads, Mitchell leads, Ruddock. Is John Ruddock going to try for a move? Jordan Ruddock going to try for a move coming into turn 1. It's not a very big braking zone. You need more overspeed than that to make the move there. But he's piling the pressure on as we switch to Chris Crossman in the lead Porsche, the number 3 car. He is really putting the pressure on Hrober at the moment for that 6th place. It's not an ideal position to try. He's forced to the outside coming into turn 3. That's not really going to go his way. There's James Hartnell right behind him in the Ferrari. Still trying though. I mean, Chris Crossman is really putting the pressure on. He's going to try and come back underneath the Audi. And the Audi's gone wide. That's a Hrober that's very, very wide. Open the door and through goes Crossman for 6th place.
Yeah, Hartnell positioned very well in 8th. He's making headway from his post-start grid after a wet qualifying. But he's going to be looking to get in that slipstream now of Hobart and follow Crossman through, because he'll be wanting to get up and attack the front boys as much as possible. But as I said earlier, Chris Crossman, his main rivals are Dave Hedges in 5th and Regan Mitchell in 3rd for that 3rd spot in the championship. So he'll be trying very hard and pushing but equally as hard.
All the Ferrari side by side as James Hartnell and Dean Riley. Also with the Ferrari looking on, there's Richard Pixley that wants to get involved in the action, but Hartnell holds on to that 8th position. The Audi and the Porsche ahead of them were side by side again of Hrober and Crossman. So it's like people starting to settle into their rhythms, except for this midfield pack. They're having a great old scrap at the moment. Clifford Roberts doing his usual thing and starting to stretch his legs up front, but not to a devastating degree. That's a few tenths here and there, but we'll see how that transpires as the race continues. Of course, we're only in a couple of laps in. It's quite early in the morning and it's raining, so tire temperature could be a thing. Oh, that's someone in trouble. I think it was Pixley. That's, I think it was Richard Pisley that went for a bit of a tank swapper there in the Jaguar. Here's a replay of the start. Now, in the middle, as you can see, you'll see that the white and green Audi gets on the outside line, but then just that little tap there is enough to send, as I've forgotten who that was.
Chris Pinchbeck just tapped Rich Smith there and just caused him to spin round on the start-finish straight. Maybe just not quite aware of how close he was up there and just gave him enough of a nudge to turn him. But unfortunate. But as we said earlier, all the drivers did really well to actually get round and avoid. That could have been a lot worse if the drivers hadn't have reacted so well. As we see, Chris Crossman and Peter Hobart now just going on the inside, but he's now on the outside, and Hobart's just, I don't know, not quite sure what line that was, but he's managed to stay side by side, and they contact again, just rubbing doors and really close. But Hobart now on the outside, and Crossman's got advantage.
Yeah, but Crossman's going to leave himself up to counter-attack here. This is exactly what happened last lap, was that Crossman got ahead in the Porsche, but then he was just slipstreamed on this back straight by Hobart. So, and then behind the Ferraris are going to have a bit of an argument over which positions they're in. And you saw when the Audi and the Porsche came together, it was a tiny impact, but it really upset the Porsche. And that's what we saw on the start-finish line, a very, very small impact being really exasperated by the way. By the look at the Porsche, look at Crossman. He's been absolutely mugged coming into turn 10. What a move by James Hartnell.
Yeah,
that was a belter.
Peter Hobart, he literally drove past Crossman like he was standing still with the slipstream, and Hartnell, as you said, just really took the advantage and followed the Audi slipstream through and got dragged past that Porsche with some real conviction there. But just to draw your attention back to the front, Archie Clifford Roberts, he was 7/10 up, now he's only 5/10. Haley's not letting go and not giving up on the race win.
He's dragging Regan Mitchell and Jordan Ruddock with him. Here we go, here is the lead for the top. The battle for the top, rather. Dave Hedges is a little bit off the back of this pack, but the more they fight, the more they'll slow each other down. And you can easily imagine the third Audi is going to get involved in this. So here we go again. Two Audis on the front of Clifford Roberts and Haley. Oh, Stephen Haley having a bit of a think about that. Excuse me.
No, Steve Haley on his last lap, he's put the fastest lap in of the race, which is nearly 2/10 faster than Clifford Roberts' best lap. So he's certainly on a man on the charge, and he's settling into these conditions very nicely. Thank you, and he's putting himself in a position now which he couldn't get much closer to Archie to maybe make an attack on the back straight when he gets that slipstream.
Well, we just witnessed with the previous pack, didn't we, with Crossman, how powerful that slipstream is. And these guys are all going to be benefiting from that. The one that is really falling behind is Dave Hedges. That's now 3.3 seconds. Now, whether he made a small mistake we didn't see. So he may have made a small mistake, but I bet you it's just these four following in each other's tyre tracks. As the bottom pane is the rear camera from James Hartnell's Ferrari, looking at Chris Crossman's Porsche as we continue to focus on the battle for the lead. No, that's not where you want to be, Mr. Haley. That's very, very slippery out there. I would imagine that's a mistake. Oh, but Clifford Roberts has gone wide. Isn't an opportunity on the inside of 11? No, not quite. That was very, very close. Yeah,
he went wide. The door was open, but the corner just flows through there, so it doesn't really present the opportunity for the following car to nip in. You're not in a braking zone. You're still accelerating at that point, albeit you've lifted off that corner, but you're back on the power, ready for the next corner. But Steve Haley's really putting Archie under pressure. He's closed it right up now, as we can see, to 2/10 as we're looking at Roberto Santoro on Paul Lindsay and Wolf and Parker. Oh, Parker and Santoro come together.
Oh dear. That's not an ideal way of taking that turn. Bit of a shame for Santoro then. That's going to lose him a colossal amount of time as we switch back to the lead race. And what a great battle this is shaping up to be. Again, Mitchell and Ruddock, third and fourth, and Mercedes and Lamborghini are having a great scrap. Here we go again. There's that bright yellow Ferrari. Tried to make the move. Well, he's got his move done, or so it would seem. Yeah, and there we go.
That was Parker just giving a tap to Santoro. I mean, that was the yellow Ferrari Wolf. He made the move clean, got through on the inside. Parker was just trying to follow him through, but Santoro decided he was going to shut the door, which he had every right to do so, but unfortunately led to that contact. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at this battle up at the front, and to me, it looks almost like Haley's more settled in second than Archie Clifford Roberts is in first. He looks like he's got the pace on him.
Could be waiting for later in the race when the car is a bit lighter to try and make the move. Look at that big stream of cars. Right, there's a bit of a gap between Crossman and Iselovic, but behind the 9th place Ferrari, look at that lot. There's Pinchback, Ridey, Colsey and Pixley all in that scrap for 9th place. As Crossman and Hartnell have broken away from it, is the Porsche going to be able to do what's been done to him a few times? There is the back view from Iselovic. I would not want to be in this Ferrari right now. He's got a lot of people chasing him down.
Yeah, that's looking like Dean Riley trying to come past Chris Pinchbeck on the straight there, and he's going to have the inside line for turn 10, so I think he might just about get that move done unless Pinchbeck side by side. Absolutely not much space between them. Pinchbeck runs very wide, but albeit within track limits there, and he's still on the outside for the next sort of 2 turns, so he's going to concede that position, I'm sure, as he does there, yeah.
Hey, he stuck it out for way longer than I certainly would have done. So
Absolutely,
fair play.
Yeah, Jordan Ruddock's just put a 2:01.7, so he's gone another 2.5 tenths faster than Haley. That's Jordan Ruddock in 4th place. So that top 4 really closing up and really pushing hard. Just on chat, good evening, Cameron. How are you going, buddy? It's nice that you can join us.
Yeah, because that top pack needed condensing.
Yeah, well, there was a few tenths, wasn't there? A few tenths here and there.
So again, looking back from our leader, Archie Clifford Roberts, staring at the nose of that Audi, Stephen Haley, that's been chasing him all race long. You just about see the nose of the Mercedes of Regan Mitchell just behind. So even though that Jordan Ruddock did set that fastest lap, they do seem to have spread out a little bit. Oh, wow. That was a bit of a misjudgment there from Haley. It didn't look like Clifford Roberts was early on the brakes. I think Stephen Haley misjudged that and threw into 2nd position. Regan Mitchell didn't need a second invite on that one. And through goes Jordan Ruddock as well. So that's one mistake has just cost Stephen Haley 2 positions and a potential of the slipstream from Clifford Roberts.
Yeah, and if they give Clifford Roberts too much space, that's when Archie really can capitalise and start to break away. If he can get them out of his slipstream, he may just put a little bit of a break on them. But Haley's going to really find it hard to put a move on that Lamborghini, because even with the slipstream, that Lamborghini is very quick in a straight line. It's looking like the Lamborghini's actually going to try and make a move on Mitchell as he closed right up in turn 10, but just didn't quite have the legs. But he's really putting the pressure on Regan, who's absorbing it, and he's going to be looking now at Archie Clifford Roberts, 1.3 seconds ahead for round figures. He's going to be really trying to close that gap up, because he'll be conscious. He's raced with Archie, or raced against Archie for the last 10 rounds. He knows what he's like. If you give him an inch, he'll take a mile, and he'll be gone up at the front. Yeah,
and Regan Mitchell's probably too far back, realistically, to get any benefit from the slipstream from Archie Clifford Roberts, but we'll see. Archie Clifford Roberts isn't doing the kind of cautious game that I thought he might, but then this, cautious to him might be 99.7% effort, in fairness. So, that's a comparative, a subjective comparison. What's cautious to one person isn't cautious to another. Oh, Ruddock again, thinking about it on the inside of turn 1. Unless you've had an absolutely storming exit from that final turn. Turn 1 isn't really a place it's going to happen. But, we'll see. Got a couple of people in the pits, I think. Crossman has come in.
Yeah, I mean, the pit strategy, they've got to do 2 pit stops. It may be that because of the conditions, they only have to change tyres once, so he might just jump in to get one of them out of the way. If he's battling and he's not really making headway, it might be that he's going for an undercut. But we're looking at Ruddock now, who's really pressing Regan Mitchell, and I'm just going to think he's really going to get tucked up behind him now. He's just been looking for a good exit as he takes a lot of curb there. But he's maybe not close enough, I don't think, again, to get the run on the Mercedes. He's certainly going to close the gap, but I'm not sure he's close enough to get past us. We see them weaving, trying to break the slipstream, and Haley's he's hung on, and he's there with the Lambo, and he's following and getting effectively a double slipstream. They'll be hitting around about 175, 177 miles an hour down this straight now.
Oh, again, Haley making himself known. There goes Ruddock. He's still going to try and outside. I think he's just trying to unsettle Regan Mitchell as they come into that turn 10. There's not really a passing zone, not with that little speed difference between them. Oh, no, John Ruddock did, I think, would maybe break a little bit early as he suddenly lost a bit of distance to Mitchell. And now Stephen Haley all over the back of him, a bit of a four-wheel drift there. As we see, now this is when, there you go. So that's what happened. He probably hit the braking zone at the right time, but he was out on the slippery bits. and that completely upset the Audi and allowed Regan and Jordan through.
Yeah, I think Haley did the right thing there. He'd gone in quite hot and quite hard, but he had to lift off the brakes to allow the car to steer, so he didn't run into the back of actually Clifford Roberts there, which was the better part of valour, as it were.
Very well driven, because it could have easily turned into a panic.
Yeah, absolutely. He was looking back from Ruddock now on to Haley as they're going down the start-finish straight. But Haley's not close enough to do anything here. I mean, at this point in the track, you really are just looking to stay as close as you can. Keep applying the pressure in these conditions, because you never know. They may make that mistake, as we've seen cars run wide, leave the door open, and you may be able to take advantage. But Haley will just need to be trying to hang on as close as possible and really hoping he can take advantage of a slipstream again.
Yeah, that gap for Archie Roberts now 1.6 seconds over Regan Mitchell. So what it is, 1.7, so he's beginning to increase as Regan's lost that all-important slipstream and has to defend from the Lamborghini and Audi behind him. As we now focus on Ranjiv Kalsi in the 47 Ferrari, he's having an argument with Chris Pinchback ahead of him. And none of our top guys have pitted just yet. Well, I think there's only one or two, is it, that's been in the pits yet?
Yeah, it's just Chris Crossman. Just for the viewers at home, if you're not familiar, the amber number down the side of the car number, most of them say number 2. That denotes how many pit stops they've got to make. They can make more, but that's how many they've got to do as mandatory. So we can see at the moment Chris Crossman has only got 1 left, because he has completed 1 mandatory pit stop. Good afternoon on chat to Kieran Vidago as well. Good to have you along, buddy.
Well, there goes Kelsey. Look, on the bottom right pane, he's making the move on Pinchback for 10th position. Again, that's going to be the common way it's going to be done in the slipstream on the back straight. Puts him on the inside for the long right-hander. There he goes into turn 10. Nice and cleanly done.
I was just going to say clean as you like, but I know I was talking to Chris yesterday and he said the Ferraris are an absolute beast down the straight. He said whatever he does in his Audi, if he's got a Ferrari in his slipstream, he's not breaking it, they're coming past, which must be a bit of a demoralising state to be when you're Chris Pinchbeck in that Audi, as he was there with that Ferrari behind him. He just knew what was going to happen.
Indeed. There's the lead now 2 seconds for Archie Clifford Roberts. The fastest lap still with John Ruddock, but the quicker lap time of the top 4. Oh, there's cone death going on there. I think the quicker of the top 4 was indeed Clifford Roberts. He was quickest by a couple of tenths over Jordan Ruddock. So he's just slowly eking that gap out. He's got no one to defend immediately from. Be interesting when back markers play a part in this, or when the pit strategies kick in. There he is. So he's not exactly miles down the road, and saying that Regan Mitchell has taken a couple of tenths out of Clifford Roberts. Just could be the difference between the Mercedes and the Audi through that particular section of the track. I would have thought the Merc would be quite handy along this back stretch, but again he's got that screaming Lamborghini right behind him, so Regan can't just concentrate on the gap in front. He's got to keep half an eye on the one behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know Regan Mitchell, again, as a driver, he does tend to gain in confidence and pace as the race goes on. So I expect to see him, start to really put some pressure on. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't get the fastest lap at some point, or certainly he'll start lapping faster than he is. Albeit that's not to say he's lapping slow at the moment. The guy's in second place doing an absolutely awesome job. But yeah, he does grow into a race, does Regan. He does get quicker as the race goes on.
Stephen Haley getting a bit exploratory on the outside of turn 10, but didn't really lose anything as a result. Still nailed to the back of the Lamborghini, although Ruddock has lost a little bit of time to Regan Mitchell. So is this an opportunity for the Mercedes to break away? Look how squiggly they're getting through turns 12 to 14. So again, the track conditions not favouring them. Tyres are going to start to obviously lose a bit of their adhesion. They'll last a fair while longer. My goodness, I was just thinking, surely Stephen Haley is not just going to drive past him. Oh no, he's overdone it into that final turn. The tail did not want to bite, and that's going to lose him all that time that Stephen Haley's just gained.
Yeah, he was really trying to take a wide entry into that last turn and get the cut back on Ruddock, but he just tried too hard with the power, didn't he, there, and got the back end steering more than the front, and just lost all his traction. As you say, he lost a lot of ground, but he's made it back up again, and the Audi, through the twisty stuff, certainly looks to be a lot more planted than the Lamborghini, but the Lamborghini just makes up for that on the straights, I believe.
Yeah, the big old Lambo has got the power to muscle its way or to undo any disadvantages it has on the twisty bits, whereas the Audi is is the one. Oh no, that Lamborghini's gone all out of shape. Jordan Ruddock is in real trouble now under the pressure from Stephen Hayden. Is he going to be able to get him on the inside of turn 6? A fairly straightforward pass. That went suddenly horribly wrong for Jordan Ruddock.
Yeah, he just lost all traction there in the braking zone here. Maybe he got the wheels locked up or something and just started to go straight on, left the door wide open for Steve Haley, and Steve Haley does not need a second invitation, as you saw there. Clean as you like, he was on the racing line, Jordan was way out wide and he just drove past him. But now he's got to defend down this straight now as the Lambo's right on his tail. But I'm not sure he's going to be close enough to do anything, although we might argue that point. Steve goes slightly defensive there, he's gone to the inside a little bit, but Jordan Ruddock didn't quite have the legs there, so Steve just needs to keep it very tidy, although he's gone very wide, and maybe a track limit warning there for him, I believe.
Yeah, he was off into the French countryside at that particular angle. But yeah, Jordan Ruddock just completely decimated the gap between himself and the Audi, which is rather what we were talking about. That was the difference between the Audi and the Lambo on that back straight. Oh, now that's the 12. Oh, that's someone coming out of the pit lane that upset the 12 Merc. And has allowed... Oh, is that Randy Kelsey?
Santoro, maybe, I think. I'm not quite sure, but certainly it was Chris Crossman exiting the pit, and it was just Roberto Santoro and Chris Bowman there just getting tangled up as they come out. I mean, that is one characteristic of this track that isn't very nice. It's a very, very abrupt pit entrance, but it's a very equally abrupt pit exit as well, straight into the racing line.
And there it is. You would just seen it demonstrated, but there it is as a reminder. And of course, the pit lane's got no real choice. It has to filter into the braking zone of turn 1, unless it does a weird kind of, I think it's Zandvoort that's Zolder, I beg your pardon, that has a very odd kind of looping pit lane exit that reappears in turn 2. But that's obviously not the route they've gone through, as we see Jordan Ruddock continuing to pile of pressure to Haley, but they are now really losing time to the top 2.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm surprised, to be honest, at how well the Lamborghini of Ruddock has managed to stay on the back of Haley. And I believe this time down the straight, as we can see how close he is from this onboard shot, he is going to try and make a move, and I believe he will get this job done, although Steve's gone to the inside and he's defending that inside line. But the Lamborghini may well get that job done before they even get to the end of the straight.
I'm expecting Ruddock to nose ahead of the Audi, but Stephen Haley's going to have the inside line for turn 10. Is that going to be enough? Oh, look at that great helicam shot that just shows that the rate of improvement from the Lamborghini had kind of stalled, and that has given the advantage back to Stephen Haley. Oh, only just getting in behind the bollards. And Dave Hedges looked like he was just going to say, argument.
Look at Dave Hedges. He's closing up now in the back, as Detox has just pointed that out in the chat, that Dave Hedges is sneaking up on the back. Whether he can close that gap down, he's about 3.5 seconds back according to the timing screen, although visually he looks maybe closer than that, not quite sure, but he's certainly advantage Dave Hedges when it comes to closing now.
Peter Hrover is a long way back from Dave Hedges, so he's got nothing to immediately defend against, so he can just concentrate on getting the lines, and he can see the battle, so this will spur him on a bit to push that a little bit harder to try and gain the time he needs. We've still got a long way to go. We're not even half an hour in, as Jordan Ruddock looks like again he's going to shape up the Audi. I doubt he's going to make a move into turn 1. It will show that he's there, but he's not going to make a move from there. He's not going to dive on the inside. If it was the final lap, perhaps he would start to think about it, but there's no point. Oh, that Audi's not handling turn 2 very well. It's going to be advantage Ruddock, but he's going to go to the outside for 3. Can he get alongside enough? No. Well defended there from Stephen Haley, but that battle's got some... Oh, who's that?
That looks like the race leader. That looks like Archie Clifford Roberts. That's his teammate gone through. That's definitely Clifford Roberts. So that's Regan Mitchell in the lead now, with Roberts in second, and coming under close scrutiny now from Haley and Ruddock. So he's dropped the ball. He has spun and dropped down to second place.
A rare mistake from the Clifford Roberts. So here it is again in the Audi. What's he done? Oh, just power on too early. And round he went. And, well alert there from Regan Mitchell, not to just headbutt the Audi. But, you do not often see mistakes like that from Archie Clifford Roberts. And exactly as you've just said, Steve, he's under pressure immediately. Well, it's certainly under slipstream from Stephen Haley, who's dragging along Jordan Ruddock with him.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really opened this whole race up now. I mean, forget the championship, let's focus on this race, because Regan Mitchell, as I said earlier, he gets faster as the race goes on. He's a very, very competent driver. He's very competent at defending, and he's absolutely very difficult to get past. So even if the guys get back on his tail, he won't make it easy for them. And Haley on the back of Roberts again, as we saw in the opening few laps of this race, he's got the pace to match Roberts if he can just stay in touch with him.
Just goes to show as well how difficult these conditions are. If Clifford Roberts can make a mistake like that, anybody can. So, we've seen surprisingly few incidents. I thought we were going to have a bit more chaos than we've seen, but that we've still got a long way to go yet. As we again see Jordan Ruddock. Ooh. Now the Audi looked very, very hesitant coming into turn 1 there. That's why I think Jordan Ruddock pulled out from behind him. It did look like that Stephen Hay was very, very early on the brakes coming into turn 1. He's lost a bit of time to Clifford Roberts as well. Perhaps I don't know whether he got distracted or lag or something. It did. That was very strange from the Audi.
Yeah,
I think this battle's got some legs on it yet.
It absolutely has, but I think Ruddock keeps doing that into turn 1. He's literally just showing his headlights to Haley in the mirror, and he's trying to entice Haley just to brake that bit later to try and maybe thinking that Ruddock's attacking and force a mistake. But Haley's far too wily for that. He's just taking his line. He knows that Ruddock can't make a move in that corner, and I don't think we'll see a mistake in that corner from Haley. But I didn't think we'd see a mistake from Roberts in this race, but we have.
I was going to say, we didn't expect to see Clifford Roberts facing the wrong way.
Yeah, and I mean, Regan Mitchell 3.3 seconds up the road now, clear. That's the biggest lead we've had in this race as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to go for it, but again, Stephen Haley committed to that defensive line, and that's actually forced Jordan Ruddock into a mistake. He went too deep on the brakes, and he knew immediately that they'd gone too deep.
These are fantastic camera angles from Mike House into the race. Absolutely awesome broadcast. And I could just watch this whole race from this splitter cam. It's absolutely amazing, especially in these conditions. And it just goes to show, look how hard Haley is pushing Roberts now. He's really on the back end of him. Roberts has had to maybe just hit the reset button and, get himself back, calm down again and concentrate on what he's doing. But it's allowed Haley really to start applying pressure, which has maybe speeded Haley up ever so slightly, because that's allowed them just to, they haven't exactly dropped Ruddock, but he's not coming under quite as much pressure over those last few corners.
No, indeed. When you have the opportunity to race someone like Archie Clifford Roberts, you certainly take it, as Stephen Haley looks to be doing, resuming their battle from early on. You're absolutely right there, Steve. Archie Clifford Roberts does need to just forget the fact that he's made that one mistake. It's so much of the race left to go. He's got ample time to close in, and he has closed a couple of tenths on Regan Mitchell that last lap, so he certainly can do it. As we look back from our championship leader, as wow, Stephen Haley's Audi getting very, very out of shape coming into turn 3.
Yeah, but Steve Haley on that last lap, as we were saying, he'd speeded up. That was his best lap of the race with a 2:01.9, which is only literally sort of a tenth and a half off the fastest lap still held by Jordan Ruddock. And just in the chat to say hello, Mark Neutlins. Mark was due to race with us this evening, but due to the Dutch internet being on strike, he's not racing with us, unfortunately. So he's just saying good luck to his teammate Adam. So thanks for joining us on the stream. I know you're watching on your phone, so hope you enjoy it, Mark, and I bet you're not missing it too much.
Yeah, the rain is a bit of a tension easer, I'm sure, for those that aren't able to take part. So as we now look at a different battle here, so this is Rich Smith in the Lexus on the back of Jeffrey Wolf. We've seen that bright yellow Ferrari in a few incidents already tonight, and wow, look how defensive Wolf's had to go coming into turn 4.
That Lexus turned really tight then, didn't it?
Doesn't it?
Amazing, yeah. Giving him the inside line on Wolf, but it's going to put him on the outside for the next corner. So I believe, he's gone all the way around the outside. Slight off-track excursion there to get the job done. So, but he's got it done, and he's put himself now under pressure as Wolf may just pick up that slipstream. But the Lexus is very good in the wet, and it's pretty quick in a straight line. And I'm going to put my neck on the line and say, watch out for Rich Smith. He's still going to be in the top 10 come the end of this race.
I mean, there's an argument there for he completed the overtake off track, but we'll see how that transpires as the race goes on. Now, as we see Peter Rober having an argument with James Hartnell.
That's Dean Riley, I think.
Oh, Dean Riley, I beg your pardon.
No, it's not actually. Yeah, you're right. I stand corrected. Yeah, it's James Hartnell.
Okay, so the lead Sky Ferrari. Oh, wow. And again, so the Ferraris decided to go for the defensive line. And is the Audi going to be able to do it? It's a long way round. He wants the inside line with turn 2. Can't hold it. Very close, though. Well driven from both of them. That could have been a rather embarrassing pile in the infield of turn 1. Keeping an eye on the gap up front, Archie Clifford Roberts seems to have hit that reset button and has got himself 8 tenths between himself and Stephen Haley. And Jordan Ruddock has made a mistake. He's now behind Dave Hedges.
I was just waiting for a gap in the commentary, and I was going to mention James Hartnell seems to have dropped down. Jordan Ruddock dropped down to 5th place behind Dave Hedges and a good 3.5 seconds behind Dave Hedges as well. So Archie Clifford Roberts closing the gap to Regan Mitchell, who currently leads. He's about 2.8 seconds back. The gap was 3.3. It's now 2.5. Steve Haley 1.8 back from Roberts. So I'm wondering if the incident with Ruddock involved Haley as well, whether there was, they took a wide line or something, or whether he did that all by himself. But Haley certainly lost some ground to Roberts as well.
Coming back to the battle for 6th position between James Hartnell and Peter Rober. Coming into turn 10, the Audi, steady, manages to get that one back on track in time. Keeping the pressure on James Hartnell. Is this the incident we've just been talking about? Let's have a look. So this is Steve. Yep. So it's Steve Haley. Oh, there we go. So it was his own incident.
Well held.
Well held. Yeah, that's channeling your inner Colin McRae. That's showing my age somewhat. But yeah, that's where he does it. Oh, and Rober's done a similar kind of thing in the Audi.
It's those curbs. Just stay off those curbs, lads. Come on. It's wet. It unsettles the car, and you just haven't got that adhesion, the traction that you need to start doing things like that. And it's just costing them silly little bits of time, but it's costing them all the same, because you lose 2 tenths to make that couple of tenths back up in these conditions. It's incredibly difficult.
It is incredibly difficult. Just no one's told Clifford Roberts that, because he's taking 3 tenths a lap out of Regan Mitchell's lead at the moment. He's absolutely back on the pace very, very quickly indeed. So fair play to...
Yeah, and Hedges has made a mistake as well. Sorry to talk over you there, but Hedges has dropped back behind Ruddock. But all that's done now is Ruddock is now, I think, about 7 seconds behind Haley. So the top 3 are breaking away now, although there is a good 2 to 3 seconds between each of those as well. But they have definitely broken the back of the battle with Ruddock, and Hedges is chasing Ruddock now.
Quarter of the race gone. Regan Mitchell leads Archie Clifford Roberts as we have a look at Dave Hedges' mistake. It's exactly the same place as Steve Haley made his error, isn't it? That's down at turn 4. Whoa! That's a bit more dramatic than the Haley managed to do. Exactly to... Oh! That was close.
Yeah,
exactly
he ran out wide onto the painted stuff, didn't he? And just lost the traction there. Just went too fast, too deep, too wide, and beyond... the laws of gravity and traction.
Indeed. And you know what's going to happen. You instinctively know that you're in trouble when you're going out that way, because he was trying to scrub the speed off. But if you hit the brakes when you're that far into the turn, all you're going to do is just go straight. You'll end up locking up and just sailing off into the distance. Oh, bit of a slide there from Rober.
Yeah, it looks like Hartnell's got the job done on Hurbar, and he's making a break on it now as well. He's 1.5 seconds up the road. He'll be keen to close up on Dave Hedges. I mean, the championship is pretty much out of James Hartnell's hands at the moment, but that won't stop him wanting to be on the podium. He will push us hard. And with an hour and a half of this race still to go, most of the drivers still got 2 pit stops to do. It's all to play for, and strategy is going to be key in this race this evening, as we see Roberto Santoro has made a pit stop. Who's that? That's Peter Hubbard. Yeah, he's parked it on the painted stuff. Obviously had another issue, and he's going to look to make a safe rejoin. Oh no, not like that. You don't light those tyres up. The wets do not like that.
And he nearly took. I mean, from this angle, that was very, very close to Colsey there, to Ranjiv Colsey in the Ferrari. But there was no impact going on there. Here's Chris Crossman, the lead driver, who's pitted. There's a couple of them that have. And Chris was very early into the pits. Hopefully that doesn't bite him as the race progresses towards the tail end of it.
Well, looking where he is now, though, Chris. I mean, he's found himself some clear air, but once the other guys start making their pit stops, it should pull him back up the leaderboard a little bit. As long as he's running in that clear air, and that's where he came out of the pits, and he hasn't made any mistakes.
Absolutely, one of the few Porsches in the field. We'll see how that transpires for him. The next one is Paul Lindsay, who's some 20 seconds behind him.
Yeah, I think he's running very heavy on fuel as well, because Chris Crossman currently is lapping in the 2:03s. In fact, his best lap's a 2:03.2. His last lap was a 2:03.6. So he's not setting the track alight with his times at the moment. As we're just looking, this is Peter Herbar, I believe.
Yep. What did he do? That looks okay.
Looks
on
okay.
the curb. Oh. No. I keep trying to second guess what he's done. I just watch the replay with everybody else. Has he gone in too? Yeah, he went in too hot. And as he's tried to then turn in, he's just in. He's in a lake.
Yeah, well, the back end just got onto that painted stuff again. It was almost a replay of Hedges in a different corner. And then he's potentially maybe just stalled it and taken a bit of time to restart, frustrated, lit the back end up, no traction, spun it again and lost more positions. So yeah, really frustrated, because Peter Herbar was having a great race there in the top sort of 6-7 places, really having a good battle, and it's all come undone now. So he's just going to have to try and again reset, rebuild and go again.
That puts Hartnell into 6th position now. He's only 1.5 off the back of Ruddock now. So is this James Hartnell's return to the sharper end of the field? He hasn't had the greatest start to the race. His last lap was 2:03.5. His best of 2:02.6. So he's not quite had the pace of those ahead of him. But consistency is always going to pay huge dividends in the wet, as we've seen from those that are being slightly less consistent, shall we say. Gap up front, 2.1 seconds between Clifford Roberts and Mitchell, 3.5 between Clifford Roberts and Haley now.
Yeah, and it's just worth pointing out that it's only those top 3 guys that have managed to get into the 201s, albeit only by maybe a 10th at best, but they're the only guys in the 201s, so they are in a sort of a class of their own pace-wise in these conditions. As we're following James Hartnell around, and we can just see how bad these conditions are. I mean, even the most planted of cars are finding it difficult to find their way through some of these corners. They're just lifting and getting light, and you get into the edge of traction. And as we've seen a couple of times, as soon as you're on that painted stuff, that's it. You're gone. You may as well just wait for the car to stop spinning and look for a rejoin.
Yep. That's the view back from the Black Falcon 69 of Regan Mitchell. And that's the Ferrari he wants to keep as far away from him as possible. He's opened up another 10th. So we'll see how well he's able to continue.
Yeah, I mean, Archie Clifford Roberts is he's closing that gap up. It looks like Regan Mitchell settled into a good pace. The gap is down to sort of just under 2.3 now. Haley's the man that's really dropping off this lead battle. But it's going to get interesting very soon, because I expect Mitchell or Roberts to make a pit stop very soon. They'll probably split this race into 3 sections just for strategy. But it'll be who blinks first and who decides to go in first.
It's interesting that Jordan Ruddock, who still has the fastest lap of the race with that 2:01.7, I think he's only really done a 2:01 that once or twice perhaps. He hasn't really been able to recapture that early pace. I mean, the track conditions are probably a bit different. Tyres aren't quite as good as they were, but we're still seeing 2:01s from some drivers, so he's still doable. But it does seem that Jordan Ruddock hasn't quite recaptured that early pace. Regan Mitchell has started to pull away again. Has Clifford Roberts made a mistake? And suddenly that gap's now 3.6.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like I say, Regan Mitchell knows how to defend, and he's equally consistent, and it seems like he's very at home in these conditions, as we're watching Dean Riley closing up on Chris Pinchbeck in the Audi. And this is sort of, Chris Pinchbeck's worst nightmare again. As I was saying earlier, he gets a Ferrari behind him, and he says as soon as, if it's behind him as they go onto the straight, he's waiting for it to go past him. But he'll defend as hard as he can. He's a good driver as Chris Pinchbeck, and he's in the deserved 8th place at the moment. Dean Riley, equally as good a driver in 9th, will push very hard, and hopefully he'll Dean looking to make a pass, I would think, on the back straight.
Dean Riley had a bit of a wobble coming onto that back straight, so that would have lost him a bit of momentum. Might it be enough to keep Pinchbeck ahead of him? Let's see as they come towards the breakers over turn 10. That's the view back from the Audi, and it was enough. Again, the Ferrari was certainly close enough when they were coming up to turn 7. But Dean Riley just a little greedy on the loud pedal, and the Ferrari got out of shape. They just lost that momentum, and that's how costly one of those mistakes is.
Yeah, because I mean we're only talking about 2 or 3 miles an hour at the most, literally a tenth or two down the straight, which makes all that difference onto that back straight there, where it allows you to get really up close and personal with the slipstream and get that move done. But yeah, Dean Riley wasn't quite close enough on that one. Chris Pinchbeck stays in 8th place for another lap.
There's a 2:01 we've missed. I've only just realised. Car 76, Rich Smith. His personal best is a 2:01.9.
Absolutely,
but,
yes.
Of course, he got mullered, didn't he, very early on? So we haven't really seen his progress particularly. He's up in 13th now, 4.3 off the back of 12th position Martin Dergela. Hopefully he'll be, if he continues that kind of pace, then he'll certainly be closer to the sharp end as the race draws more to a conclusion. Dean Riley continuing his pressure on Chris Pinchbeck for that 8th spot. That's the view back from the Audi, from the Belgian Audi Club WRT 43.
Yeah, we're just seeing a couple of cars entering the pits now. Herbar and Pixley are just opted to go into do their first mandatory pit stop, so we'll see where they file back out again. But yeah, I mean, Pinchbeck's he's a seasoned ACC racer. He knows how to drive this Audi. The Audi is his favourite car. He normally he can perform pretty well in it, so he'll do all he can. And he looks like he gets a bit of a gap through the corners. He's obviously running that bit more downforce than that Ferrari behind him. As Chris's mum comes on to chat and says, "Come on, Pinchy." Good evening, Jean. Hope you're well.
And here we are looking at Chris Crossman in the Porsche, fending off. I want to see who that is. He is fending off, actually. The positions have changed a little bit with pit stops.
And Chris, it looks like he's having to really defend this one again as the Ferrari's up the inside on this time, and he's got the job done. And lucky Chris, but he's not going to give up. He's coming to the twisty stuff now, where I suspect Chris is running that bit more downforce, and he may be able to keep that Ferrari under a bit more pressure. As we see someone parked up in the background there.
It's Ruddock.
The Amco.
Jordan Ruddock's in trouble. He's fallen through the field on my screen. So either the timings are slightly... Yeah, Jordan Ruddock's in trouble. Oh no! From being up in that top pack for so long, suddenly Jordan Ruddock is outside of the top 10. What has happened to him?
Yeah, well, we may find out what's happened to him, but yeah, like you say, he's fallen from grace. He was battling with the leaders for many, many laps in that first half hour. As we go to a replay now, just see what's happened as he's going down the back straight now at full chat. Has he just gone too fast into turn 10?
It'd be a bit odd. There's no one already ahead of him. Let's see what he does. Going up towards turn 10 now. He's in the middle, which is really need to be on the left. There he goes. So far so good. Has he hit the painted stuff? Let's have a look. Into turn 10 he goes. There he goes. Didn't he? He's had a technical problem because he's just going off into the scenery there. He's turning left into the barrier. That's a definite technical problem. Some kind of screen freeze or wheel failure, something like that. What a shame.
And that's Pinchbeck. Pinchbeck's got past Riley again. Come on, Chris, that's a great move. He's just managed to... I think we just caught the tail end of it, so I'm not sure how he set that move up, but he got past Riley. He's back in the lead, albeit he's going to have to defend it very quickly again as they go back down this 177 mile an hour straight now, with Dean Riley in close attention, looking to pick up that slipstream again. And he can't get much closer behind the Audi, albeit he's got a couple of... Yep, and he's gone wide. Chris this time has opted to defend the inside line, which is a better part of valour, but the Ferraris managed to go right round the outside of him. So there wasn't much Chris could do about that.
I mean, fair play to Dean Riley, because that had to be quite a clenching moment, shall we say. On the way, on the outside is pretty difficult to do.
Good evening to Abdullah on the stream, buddy. We need to get you back on track. I thought you might have been racing this evening with it being your home circuit. Also, Aaron Walker. I've just seen Jordan go off there. But yeah, good evening, Aaron. Thanks for the comments. Great coverage. Amazing racing so far. And he's hoping Mr. Haley can find a rhythm and catch Archie. We all are, to be fair. It's fantastic racing this evening so far up front. The rain's certainly levelled the playing field a little bit. We've seen mistakes from quite a few drivers, and one of those included is Archie Clifford Roberts, who was earlier on in the evening 2.5 seconds to the good up in the lead until he spun and handed that lead to Regan Mitchell, who was really. He's stretched that lead out again. He's back up to just under 3 seconds. So Regan's he's got the pace. He's potentially got the pace to win this race this evening.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's doing very well to hang on to that as we look at, again, Chris Pidgeback with his battle with Dean Riley. That's the view from the championship leader, Archie Clifford Roberts. That's what is now 2.7 seconds. That's what it looks like between first and second, the Merc and the Audi.
Jordan's just come into chat. Sorry to interrupt, Chris, again. Sorry, my VR headset died on me. So as you say, technical issue. Very astute of you to point that out, buddy. But yeah, unlucky, Jordan, because that's a real shame, mate.
We are down to 18 now. So Jordan, what a shame. Our fastest lap holder now no longer in the race. Strong start, but alas, technical failings happen to us all.
Yeah, he may just hang on to that fastest lap because I can't see anyone else that's getting actually that close to it, really.
That's going to be a very hard one to beat. It's going to need a slipstream bare minimum, to get actually close to that. As we continue to look from the view of Archie Clifford Roberts, has he closed his gap down even more? No, he's gone the other way. Wow, Clifford Roberts lost 0.6 of a second that last time around. He was only 0.3 slower than his previous lap, but Regan Mitchell nailed it. With a 2:02 flat, that's only a couple of tenths off of his personal best of the race with a 2:01.863. So yeah, Regan Mitchell is still got a little bit in hand. If he can keep the gap, you're absolutely right, Steve. He could well be in the running to win this race.
Yeah, and it also almost looks like Steve Haley's now just sort of dropped his pace to settle into third place as he's sort of 10.5 seconds off the leaders. Dave Hedges in fourth. He's 7 seconds behind Steve Haley, and James Hartnell a further 7 seconds back from Hedges. Kelsey having a fantastic race up into 6th place. I mean, I said, didn't I, right at the start that Ranjiv Kelsey does like the wet conditions and he can put some consistent performances in the wet. And in that Ferrari, he's doing a fantastic job to be in 6th place.
And there he is. Yeah, you absolutely called that during qualifying. He's doing very, very well. His best is a 2:03 flat. Last lap around 2:03.6, so he could be a little bit heavy on fuel. He could just be playing the cautious route. You wouldn't blame him either way. I can't see. Is that the McLaren ahead of him?
Yeah, maybe. Another one that I called as well, Rich Smith said he'd be in the top 10. He's up to 9th now.
There he is.
Yeah. Worth pointing out, though, Paul Lindsay, who's in 18th in the Porsche, has done both his mandatory stops. But in the Porsche, I don't think it can do an hour and 15 minutes, even on a full tank of fuel. I believe he will have to stop for some fuel.
Great splash and dash towards the end. That's why he's a couple of laps down. We've lost from the race Jordan Ruddock, Roberto Centaro, as we've also lost from the listing. So hence why we have 18 left. But fast approaching the halfway stage as Kelsey, he's got a bit of a gap between himself and James Hartnell. We can certainly keep on that kind of rhythm. There is Regan Mitchell again, the lead of the race. That gap's come down again. Regan didn't have a good run. He has had some back markers to deal with. I believe in the background of the shot is Peter Hroba, as Regan caught Peter's car right on the exit of turn 7, and Peter didn't really do anything wrong. The Audi was minding his own business, but it was very nearly impact between Regan and Peter as they came onto that back straight, and that is a very awkward place that Archie Clifford Roberts has caught Peter Hroba's car. If that is Hroba's Audi, he needs to really get out of the way, but he's just minding his own business at the moment. Again, that's where Regan Mitchell caught him, and Clifford Roberts has caught him at the same spot, but has been following him a bit longer. But look, I think this the momentum is going to go back towards Regan this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, the back markers, it normally levels itself out. You catch one in a bad spot and your competitor who's following you may then catch them in a bad spot. And in these conditions, to be fair, it's not the easiest thing to do to get off the racing line. As long as you don't start fighting the person that's coming to lap you and just maybe lift off on the straight, as I believe Peter Hobart did there, although he's very close up behind Archie now. He's trying to take the advantage and maybe pick his lap times up a bit. it by following the leaders through. But yeah, it's a difficult one in these conditions to actually just get out of the way without risking a spin and potentially causing a collision with them as well as yourself. On the chat though, it's good to see Gerard in there, and he says he's going to be with us in the next season with a new seat. So great stuff, Gerard. It'd be fantastic to have you back on the track with us. And as Mark Neutland's your countryman points out, there's not enough Dutch anyway. So yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, need more representations from the Netherlands. Fair enough. Regan Mitchell completes another lap. What's he done this time? So 2:02.2 that time around, about 7 tenths quicker. Wow, yeah, there you go. Archie lost 1.4 seconds off of Regan Mitchell, and that will be, again, no real fault of Peter Hobart there. He wasn't doing anything to block. He was just unfortunate timing there. And again, another aspect that our drivers need to bear in mind is that they always encouraged to be predictable. They don't want to suddenly, the person lapping them doesn't suddenly want them to jump out of the way and cause a potential incident. Just keep your line, maybe just back off the throttle a little bit at an appropriate point. But like you say, Steve, if you catch them at the wrong point, you'll just end up losing a lot of time, as we also see Dave Hedges coming into the pits. Yeah,
Chris Bowman and Dave Hedges, but Dave Hedges the interesting one because he's currently running in 5th place, so this will give us some sort of idea of how things will pan out in that midfield there, 5th, 6th, 7th place, because he's going to do his first pit stop. Ranjith Kelsey, Dean Riley, very much, even Chris Pinchbeck, I believe, will come past him. And he'll filter back out maybe in 10th, 11th, somewhere down there, I would imagine. And also it'd be interesting to see where he comes out against Chris Crossman, because obviously they were very close on the track before Chris pitted very early in the race.
Chris Bowman's been in the pit an awfully long time.
Yeah, he's maybe got a technical issue. Maybe he's got some damage on the car. Obviously, depending how much damage you've got, if you're getting that repaired, the pit stop extends to allow enough time to repair whatever damage it is. Or it may be that he's parked it in the pits.
Could well be. That'll be a bit of a shame for him if he has done. It's now looking at Dave Hedges, post-pit stop. So he wasn't in the pits too long. 11th position now. So one stop out of the way for the Audi. Yeah, the timing screen will change.
Yeah, and he's come out, he's actually in 10th place now, so yes, I thought he might come out around about 10th, 11th, but he's 53 seconds it's showing in the timing screen at the moment. We'll just get an update on that, but he's actually now behind Crossman. I'm just, sorry, I paused there because the timing screen all updated itself and Crossman is actually in front of him. He's half a second behind him, so yeah, looks like Crossman's tactics are paying off, shall we say, because he's still up there with Dave Hedges, who was running in 5th place. So Chris Crossman is still a top 6 contender.
As paying off at the moment, but we'll see if he's able to string out the fuel long enough to not have to do another stop towards the end of the race, as Chris Bowman has now come out of the pits.
I'll just read out. I think it's a compliment, Chris. It's somebody called Twist on the chat says, funny how the hosts seem more professional than the F1 hosts in my country. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you indeed. As we are on board now with Dave Hedges, as he continues to put the pressure on Chris Crossman in the Porsche. Ooh, again, you can just see, even through the gradual gradient of that long right-handed, just the tail is not behaving itself. Again, the right turn going into a left-handed bend is always a sign of trouble. Porsche is usually one of the more planted cars, and Chris Crossman is having to get crossed up. How many times have you heard that one? And there, Dave Hedges getting a bit of a four-wheel slide on as well, coming through that penultimate turn.
Yeah, Dave Hedges, he's been sort of putting the laps in and doing what he does, and he's not really been having to battle anyone too hard. And the danger is, when you're up as close as you are, as he is now behind Crossman, you just try to push that little bit too hard, and you try and run it a little bit wider. You hit the curb, you hit the painted stuff, and as we've seen other drivers this evening, that just leads to half spins, slides, everything that just costs you a little bit of time. And he just needs to keep it steady, try and stay in that slipstream, because the Porsche isn't the quickest thing down that back straight. If the Audi if he can keep close enough and gain that slipstream, I'm sure he'll have the pace to get past Crossman. Although Crossman won't make it easy for him, he'll defend it, but yeah, he will have the pace. As we see the teammates banging doors there, and looks like Pixley maybe came off worse there.
I think it was Parker that flew off the road. Oh, here we go. Here's Dave Hedges, surely making the move on the Porsche. Greater exit speed from turn 7. There we go. And Crossman has gone to the racing line. He knew that was coming. And we've just seen that Porsche just getting very, very squiddy pretty much everywhere. Side by side down the back straight, but the advantage is definitely going to be Dave Hedges. There we go. The Porsche slots back in line. A move is done before they even get to the braking zone. So, yeah. Crossman knowing that one was done, not doing anything silly. And he's going to try and stay in the slipstream of the Audi, I would imagine, as long as he can. It's going to be a difficult car to keep up with. Chris is no slouch. Well, none of these drivers are slouches, in fairness. Race leaders come in. Regan Mitchell has decided to pit, so Clifford Roberts takes over the lead once again.
Yep, Clifford Roberts back into the lead, albeit, just for a moment while Regan Mitchell win the pits. Clifford Roberts is going to have to make a pit stop. As we see the two Jaguars now in this replay, we should see what happened to those and the bit of door rubbing. Yeah. Ooh. That's not the sort of teammate move you want to make, is it really?
No. I think there was an intent to let, I think it was Richard Pixley, I think the intent was for him to pass Daniel Parker, but I think he then understeered into his teammate, so that just sent Daniel Parker off into the paddock area.
Yeah, it looked like he was going down the inside, leaving his braking a little bit too late, but like you say, he maybe just braked a bit too hard, too late, and just understeered into the side of him. May have got that move done if he'd have just lifted off the brakes, but it's easy to be an expert where you sat with when I'm sat here.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Rich Smith making a pit stop as well from 8th place, so that's another one of our sort of top 10 runners now.
Yeah, so he's done pretty well to get back up towards the sharper end after getting caught out in the opening. So there he is in the Lexus. Bringing that one here. Oh no, he's coming out, isn't he?
Yeah, he should just be exiting the pits now, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see if we can have a safe exit from this very short pit exit.
Yeah, and that's... I'm not sure who that was. I think it was one of the Jags that just went through. So remains in 11th position. That's not bad at all from Rich Smith. I would say he's... gotten into the 201s, the rare 201 kind of times that we haven't really seen repeated, so I don't think the track conditions of the tyres are allowing for those ultra quick laps to be repeated. As we look at Regan Mitchell out in 7th position now in the Mercedes, so he just needs to really get out there and get on with it. And of course, we don't know how much longer Clifford Roberts is going to run before he comes in. The longer he runs, the heavier he's been, so Regan Mitchell really wants Clifford Roberts in pronto.
Yeah, this is where the mind games really take over now, isn't it? Because obviously Regan's filtered back out into 7th place, just behind Pinchbeck, 2.5 seconds back. He's got to keep his focus on now. He's got to stick to his game plan and just put us the fastest laps he can in. But then likewise for actually Clifford Roberts, he's going to see where Regan is in the grand scheme of things on the driver's leaderboard, but he's not going to know his lap time. He's not going to go the pace he's doing. So the ball's really, I would say, in Regan Mitchell's court now, because actually Clifford Roberts is going to, do I make my pit stop now? Do I stay out a bit longer? He's really, the pressure's on him now as to when he stops.
Regan Mitchell's got no one around him either. I don't think Clifford Roberts does either, in fairness. So it's not like Regan Mitchell's come out into a whole heap of traffic. So he's got some nice clean air to try and get some decent laps underway. What we don't know is how much fuel each car is carrying. They know what their strategy is. They know when they're going to pit to get the... Wow, look at this. Colsey up to 4th. Okay, that's aided by the pit stops. But again, you called that he was going to have a strong showing. Oh, he's braving the painted stuff on the outside of turn 10 there. Ooh, steady! I do not want to commentate you, curse you, sir. Don't make me do it.
Keep it going in the right direction, not sideways. Come on, man. It's he's having a great race. He's Ranjith. He takes part in all the Simsport races. He's been with us for a number of years, and he's improved his drive. It has to be said, he's improved fantastically his Ranjith's speed. And if anyone wants to join the Simsport community, it's www.simsport-racing.com. You find all the links for our Discord, Facebook, YouTube channels, everything on there. And everyone's welcome of any standard. We try and help everybody of whatever standard you are. There's always guys on the servers, so it's good to see someone like Ranch, who by his own admission when he joined us wasn't by far, he was a long way off the pace, but he's very much on the pace in 4th place, and a deserved 4th place at the moment. Yeah,
fair play to Kelsey for that one. I will say, as much as this does sound like a salesman pitch, but I will certainly echo what Steve said. It is a great community here at SSR. So it is welcome to all. As long as you abide by the rules and don't do anything silly intentionally, then you will find a lot of help and support here, and some great racing and some wonderful, wonderful people. Highly implore anybody to get involved in these races. As Steve has said, you know where to find them. Find the Discord, find the website, and get involved. You may have lunatics like us shouting about your on-track antics as Kelsey continues to press on and make some decent progress. Again, his lap times have been pretty consistent in the sort of mid 203s for a while. Still, Clifford Roberts doesn't come in. His last lap at 203 flat. Where's Regan's? 202. So
207,
yeah,
so
he was quicker.
2.5 tenths quicker, but yeah, obviously we don't know what traffic if he came up against any back markers, but obviously we've had a few people retire from this race this evening, so we've literally got 18 cars, well, I say 18 cars circulating. Chris Bowman has left the pits, but he's 3 laps down now, so his race is pretty much done. But yeah, so they're going to come across less traffic, shall we say, and not quite, as frequently be held up by anybody. So it pretty much is about their own out-and-out pace now, as we're on board with Dean Riley, looking back at Chris Pinchbeck just off in the distance there. Again, Simply Race providing some fantastic camera angles as ever on these broadcasts. Absolute joy to watch.
Absolutely it is. That is Chris Pinchbeck. So following his earlier battles, he's a couple of seconds off the back of the Ferrari that we're riding on board with. Camera angle's a bit strange. It works really well in the twisty bits, and then all you can see is just sky and grandstands. It's a bit unfortunate, but
I was just going to say we need Chris Pinchbeck a little bit closer, as Mike just alters the camera very much for your wish is my command, sir. Chris Pinchbeck has gone into the pit.
He went into the pit. Well, that was awfully inconsiderate of the number 43.
But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And again, Archie Clifford Roberts, the pressure's on him now as to when he's going to stop, as we see Dean Riley, who's 2.3 seconds off the back of Ranjiv Kelsey. Dean Riley's putting in some good laps, and I'm just looking, he's done a 203. Ranjiv Kelsey was a 203. So they're lapping pretty much the same. And in fact, Ranjiv Kelsey's last lap was his best lap of the race, 203.075. So I know it's not the a long way from the quickest lap of the race, but for Ranj to be putting in his own fastest laps halfway through the race, that's showing some good consistency. Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to make that very, very same point. I'm still keeping an eye on the lap times between Clifford Roberts as we ride on board with him. You can just see there is no one that's going to block him, but equally that's no one to give him a slipstream. Is he going to come in this time? Nope, not interested in the pit lane yet. And this will be something that Regan Mitchell will be bearing in mind. He'd have known how much fuel he had in his Merc when he came in. I'm not saying that each car uses up fuel at exactly the same rate, but they won't be too far apart, I'd have thought. So Regan Mitchell will know he stopped at this point and needed this much fuel, and he'd have known that Clifford Roberts hasn't come in yet. So how much of the mind game is that going to play? We will see. 2:02.5 for Archie Clifford Roberts. Last time around was still one of the quickest laps of the race. I don't think Regan's crossed the line just yet this time. Last time was a 2:02.1. So again, Regan is really, really pushing hard to try and regain the lead come pit stop times. We look back from Rich Smith after his pit stop. He's looking back at Peter Hobart. So the Lexus looking back at the Audi. And you could just, even at this stage, the cars are still twitching around. Half the race done. Clifford Roberts leads. Stephen Haley is in second position now, with James Hartwell in third.
Yeah, and Steve Haley, he's just sort of maintaining that 20 seconds back. He's had a few little hiccups here and there, little half spins and run deeps and things that's cost him a bit of time. But he's got a good buffer back to James Hartnell in third. And we're just over halfway through the race now, so it's starting to, it has settled down. We've got a good, over half the field have done their first pit stops now. We've got Arch Clifford Roberts still to make his pit stop, his first of two, and Steve Haley, James Hartnell, Ranjiv Kelsey, Dean Riley and Jeffrey Wolf are still to make one of their mandatory stops. Chris Bowman is showing as he's got 2 mandatory stops left to make, but I'm sure he's been in the pits a couple of times, so maybe he's got issues.
That'll be a shame if he does. He's certainly been at least once, because he was in there a very, very long time that put him 3 laps down. But Paul Lindsay, if he doesn't have to come in again, which I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Oh no! literally, as I was talking about him, he's just earned himself a drive-through penalty.
That would be for track limits. I'm guessing at this point in the proceedings, he's obviously used up his 3 warnings, and then the 4th one you get a drive-through. So unfortunately, that's a drive-through, and then the warnings are reset, and off you go again. But just on to lap times. Regan Mitchell's last lap was a 2:02.7. Archie Clifford Roberts was a 2:02.9. So
wow.
Regan's still lapping a couple of tenths faster than Archie. So if Archie is taking any notes of the lap times, if he is getting a chance to see them as Regan goes over the line, then he's going to know that Regan's still lapping faster, and the pressure very much is on Archie for the race win, although for the championship it's in the bag pretty much. Steve Haley's pitted.
Yeah, Stephen Hayes come in. Yeah, but we saw a perfect example of when Paul Lindsay and his drive-through. That's how the commentator curse works. Mention someone, they say that they're doing okay. Usually, just mentioning them is beckoning the commentary curse gods. So yeah, Stephen Haley in. So that is going to promote a few people up the field, depending on how long, of course, he is in the pits for. Yeah, Kelsey's still. I'm surprised actually people are running this long before they've done their first stop. But these guys know what they're doing. You don't have to space your pit stops out evenly. They know when they want to come in. Is Jeffrey Wolf going to gain a spot here? Oh, that's close. Oh, wow, that could have gotten nasty, but well played from both of them. And assuming that is Stephen Haley that's just come out. It is indeed, so he's now out 7th. Oh, that was close.
It was indeed. Cameron Fife just asking in the chat earlier on, when are we opening up the signings for the new GT4 season? They will be opening up later on tonight, tomorrow morning, for the contributors to sign up as a contributor. They make donations to us of their own free will to keep the community going. So as a reward of that, we'll give them 24 hours prior notice to sign up, so they get a chance to sign up early. So that'll go live, like I say, later on this evening, and then 24 hours later it'll go to the general community. Paul Lindsay just put in the chat, pedals are dying again. So Paul Lindsay's having issues with his hardware, so that's explains a little bit of his woes.
Yeah, they're rather crucial to the whole racing thing. You kind of need them to do their job, and I've had to deal with iffy pedals before. Accelerators that want to kick in when you really, really, really don't want them to. So no, I feel for Paul Lindsay there. So that is another casualty of the race. 17 remain. And
just by my reckoning there, Steve Haley, who's come out in 7th place, is round about 24 seconds behind Regan Mitchell. And obviously we're expecting when Archie Clifford Roberts makes his first pit stop, he'll drop in between those two somewhere. Albeit he was, if my memory serves me correctly, he was round about 3 seconds behind Mitchell, wasn't he, before Mitchell pitted?
I think it was closer to 4, but he was certainly in that region. Oh wow, as Stephen Haley gets a very, very, very crossed up coming through the twisty bits. We've seen another couple of people coming to the pits. That is James Hartnell and Dean Riley. Coming into the pit lane. They'll be reappearing around about kind of 8th or so at a guess, as we see Stephen Haley on the back of the bright yellow Ferrari of Jeffrey Wolf. They'll be elevated up the field. Jeffrey now 4th, Stephen Haley 5th. Your man Ranjiv Kelsey now in 2nd place in his Ferrari. So an excellent run there. Of course, they still have their pit stops to do. 3 drivers, is it? Yeah. The form still shows Chris Bowman as having 2, but pretty sure that is incorrect. So certainly Clifford Roberts, Kelsey and Wolf have their 2 pit stops to serve. Like I said, I'm surprised they're running this long before having to serve the first one, but maybe they just want a very, very short one at the end.
Well, we're going to say that Kelsey, I mean, to be going this far, must have been running almost full fuel. Excuse me, although in these conditions, obviously, they're not using quite as much fuel a lap. I mean, in the dry, they were using round about 3.3, 3.4 litres of fuel per lap. But in the rain, obviously, that they turn everything down a little bit. They're not going as quick, they're not going quite as hard, so they do use a little bit less fuel, so it does allow them to go a bit longer, but they will be getting close to that point where they are getting very low on fuel, and they will have to pit, as Archie Clifford Roberts has pitted now.
Yep, race leader is in. Stephen Haley wrestles the Audi around the inside of turn 10, but does manage to get the move done. And Jeffrey Wolf, nicely done. That should be him then, potentially dancing off into the distance. as Clifford Roberts is in the pit, and Ranjit Kalsi has chosen to continue the Ferrari relative newcomer in the lead.
Absolutely, yeah, good old Ranj, and just put those laps in. But I'm guessing he will have to pit very soon. Paul Lindsay, just again in the YouTube chat there, who's retired now, wasn't fun to drive in. I can tell you that, lol. So he maybe just wasn't quite enjoying it in the Porsche there, and maybe the pedals failing was a little bit of a blessing in disguise, a bit of a respite from the trauma of racing in these conditions.
I've also been keeping half an eye on Ranjiv's lap times, and for quite a number of laps now, he's been at 203 flat, 203 flat, 203 flat. So again, his consistency is really reigning true, and his last lap was his personal best of 203.033. Regan Mitchell has managed to get back. Wow, I didn't expect the gap to be that much between Regan Mitchell and Clifford Roberts. 7.5 seconds.
That just goes to show, doesn't it, when you haven't got that visual aid of chasing somebody. You think you're doing your best laps, you potentially are doing the best laps you can, but you haven't got that visual aid of, chasing someone down that just spurs on those extra tenths or two, and it's definitely cost Archie some time there as Regan's been putting the laps in. As we saw on the timing screens, he was a good couple of tenths faster and even more on some laps, and that's just given advantage Mitchell, I'm afraid.
Wow, very, very much so. So Regan Mitchell doing an absolute blinder from the exit of his first stop to build up that lead, almost double the lead, or indeed doubling the lead from that he had previous to the pit stop. Fair play to him. There is Regan Mitchell. And
what I will say as well, to be honest, is Haley, he was 21 seconds behind Roberts, and he's now 17.8. So he's been putting some reasonable laps in as well. I mean, that is a massive gap to come to close down even in the 49 minutes we've got left at the standard of this driving. But we have seen some mistakes. It's not an insurmountable gap. He could do that if Archie makes some mistakes and he keeps putting the laps in. But it's definitely changing, and Archie's the one that's eased up on the pace a little bit, it would appear.
Yeah, we'll see. But then if anybody can suddenly pull the pace out of nowhere, it is indeed Archie Clifford Roberts. So we'll see if he's able to do that in the latter half of this race. 49 minutes to go, so plenty of time for things to change. And one spin, one off, one tangle with someone coming out of the pits or a back marker can completely destroy that gap. So it's not insurmountable. Just Clifford Roberts needs to kind of dig in and head down and get on with it, although it's just increased again now over 8 seconds. Just saw Archie Clifford Roberts in the back of the shot there as we continue to see Regan Mitchell. I don't think he might just about see Kalsi down the end of the straight, but it's unlikely.
We've seen Crossman's coming into the pits as well to do his final mandatory stop, and that will be him done, and he will go the 50 minutes or 48 minutes and 20 seconds to the end of the race as we see him on the bottom of your screen there, just entering the pit lane into this pit box.
He was one of the ones that pitted very, very early in this race, or certainly out of sync with everybody else. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how he can, where he'll filter back in, where his pace is. His best is a 2:03.2. So that's going to sort of really establish him in the midfield, I would have thought, as Ranjiv Kalsi is continuing to lead the way. Of course, that lead is shrinking between himself and Regan Mitchell, but there he is in the red Ferrari. There's nothing to say he has to come in at any given time, but just he has to come in twice.
Preferably before he runs out of fuel, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But he's going to be pushing
at some point. Yeah,
I was going to say he's going to be pushing that very close as we see Chris Crossman now exit the pits. That's his pit stop's done. He's clear to go. He's in 12th. Everybody else in front of him's got at least one more stop to do, so he will go back up that order. Just in chat, Alex Goldsmith, the voice of Simsport, is watching. No pressure, but we have got the voice of Simsport observing us this evening, Chris.
The god that is Goldschmidt. Guten Tag, mein Freund. There he is. So, I'm under evaluation. As we jump back to Ranjiv Kalsi, who's got ahead of him? I wonder if that's Crossman that's just come out of the pits.
It looks very much like his.
It must be his
colours,
one remaining Porsche. So yeah, that's Chris Crossman directly ahead of him.
And interestingly, Ranjiv Kelsey, I mean, Chris Crossman is a quick driver, but Ranjiv Kelsey has been lapping an average of at least a second and a half faster than Crossman. So he will, if he stays out, he will catch and he will pass Crossman.
Kelsey's having a great day, isn't he, up front? And all on merit. You can't say he'd have inherited some gains from other people's mistakes, but his pace has earned him where he is. That's not just luck. He's done that on pace. Again, your prediction was spot on at the top of the show that he would have a good day, and he's leading the way at the moment. Has been for a few laps now. Jeffrey Wolf has done his personal best, a 2:03.4 in 5th position with a bright yellow Ferrari. He's yet to see the pit lane. Only 2 drivers that haven't. Indeed, Ranjiv Kelsey and Jeffrey Wolf. Short, they've got to come in any minute now. They can't go on much longer.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Ranji's in the lead at the moment. He's not made any pit stops, so obviously it's a very false position, although he has had a good race, and as we keep pointing out, he keeps putting those lap times in within 2-3 tenths of each other every single lap. He's put personal bests in the last few laps, obviously, as the fuel load's dropped, so he's not having any issues with tyre wear at all. So he's going to come in, he's going to do a pit stop. Will he keep the same tyres on? Will he just put fuel in? Who knows what this man's going to do this evening, because his strategy, his and Jeffrey Wolf's, it has to be said, is different to everybody else's on the track. And at the moment, it's paying dividends for him, although when he's done his pit stops, I do suspect, I'd like to see him stay in the top 10. But we'll see. I know he was battling with Chris Pinchbeck, who's 9th earlier on in the race, so it'd be nice to see him in the top 10.
He does know he has to come in, doesn't he?
Yes, he's seasoned enough to know the rules, he's Ranji. He knows what he's got to do. I mean, I would say he's going for his 5 minutes of fame, but he's led for more than 5 minutes, so he must be due a pit stop.
It's got to be soon. Oh, hello. That's Richard Pixley having a bit of an argument with... the Jaguar wasn't the one that... which Jaguar is it? It was a bit difficult to tell.
Pixley and Bowman, and then Parker behind,
Parker.
Isn't it?
It was the second Jaguar with Parker. They're having a bit of an argument with someone. That's got to be Mitchell, was the Merc, I think.
Or was it Mitchell lapping them? Yes. Yeah, I was mistaking it for Bowman, but he's got the same colours as Mitchell.
Oh, and Kelsey's gotten past. I mean, okay, that'll be under blue flags, but he's gotten past Crossman.
Yeah, that's a wake-up call for Crossman, now being lapped by Ranjiv. So, Chris needs to get his things in order and get some lap times in if he wants to, make the fact that he's done both his pit stops count. He needs to follow Ranj around and try and match Ranji's pace.
And that is not going to be an easy thing. I mean, Chris Crossman's personal best is a 2:03.2, whereas Ranjiv has been regularly in the 2:03 flats, as I previously mentioned. So we are expecting the 2 Ferraris of Ranjiv Kelsey and Jeffrey Wolf to be in. Well, I've been expecting them in for a while. I've lost count how many times I've mentioned that. So
I was going to say, shall we start running a sweepstake on the chat with people to see when he's going to actually come in? The odds are getting shorter, surely, as we're watching Rich Smith now in 10th place, 4 seconds behind Pinchbeck. Now, I'm just going to look at the lap times there. Rich Smith's last lap was nearly a second faster than Pinchbeck's. So he's definitely got the legs on Pinchbeck, and he's definitely closing that gap down. So that could be an interesting battle that's going to come to us very shortly.
And Kelsey's in. Ranjiv Kelsey has bled that tank dry and has finally conceded to come into the pits. But fair play to hang on to the lead that long, and a great performance it has been nonetheless. Still has another 43, just under 43 minutes of racing to go, so still got time to get back towards the sharper end as Bowman's in the pits again. Oh dear.
Alex Goldschmidt making a brave call on the chat, saying definitely a splash and dash from Ranj and Jeffrey with about 5 minutes to go from their last pit stops. So yeah, I don't disagree with you, Alex. I think that could well be their tactics. With these conditions, the real game changer could be whether they take any tyres at all, because they don't have to. All they have to do in the pit stops is take fuel. I'm not quite sure what the wear rate of... as we see a spin there, that's Kelsey.
Yeah, Kelsey came out in 6th. I think that's James Hartnell he's just tangled with.
speechless. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kelsey, we caught the tail end of that, but he's recovered best from that. And if that was Hartnell, then he's not going to be best pleased.
He's not going to be a popular man, is he?
No.
That was James Hartnell. We rather caught the end of that. That was at the end of turn 1, so he'd come out of the pits. We know how abrupt that pit lane exit is. When it comes to the entry of turn 1, so hopefully we'll see it again. So here's Kelsey coming out. Hartnell's going to make a big dive on the inside. Kelsey turns in. Well, there was enough room, but that gap was closing pretty quickly. I think Hartnell was probably assuming that Kelsey was going to let him go, but he didn't. There was no obligation for Ranji to let James go there. I think there was probably a mixture of optimism and maybe too late on the brakes for James Hartnell there, but we'll see what the stewards have to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's the steward's decision to look at, obviously after the race, probably tomorrow evening, retrospectively from many different angles and many times, as we're now going to be on board with Hartnell, I believe. And we should see, there's Ranjit just emerging from the pits. So he's a fair way in front, but obviously the speed difference is massive, and James enters that. But yeah, I suppose Ranj was already turning into the corner, wasn't he? He had the rights to the corner, I think, on that occasion. But like I say, the stewards will look at that one and they'll make a decision. As we've seen Jeffrey Wolf making his first pit stop now as well.
Yeah, finally the bright lemon-coloured Ferrari is in to serve one of his mandatory stops. Yeah, I've done my fair share of stewarding in the past, so I'm glad I'm not having to sit on the board for that one. There is James Hartnell trying to get back into the rhythm. His teammate Dean Riley right behind him, and he's in.
Yeah, so he's coming in to clear that final pit stop. And also, Ranjit Kelsey, he's in a genuine 6th place. That's absolutely awesome.
I think he's up to 5th now, because on my screen, Dean Riley's behind him. On the main screen, he's of course, as Jeffrey Wolf is still showing as being ahead of him. Yeah. So this is the view from the left side of Ranjit Kelsey's car as he's come out of the pit. So off the pit lane limiter, he stayed over to the right hand side. You can't see James in the mirror just yet. Begins to turn and suddenly bang. So I would say, in my opinion, that Ranjit Kelsey had the right to take the racing line, even though James Hartnell was closing in on him at a rate of knots. He wasn't alongside at the point of the corner entry, in my opinion. But we'll see what the stewards think of that. But that is 5th position for Ranjit Kelsey now. And we'll see if he's able to get back to his previous race pace. Yeah,
but the other thing to mention from that whole incident was well-held Ranj, because he was 45 degrees there, almost 90 to the track at one point, but he just put the steering inputs in and then drew it back into line and carried on and didn't really suffer too much from that incident.
He was probably saved by the fact that he had just come out of the pit, so of course his entry into turn 1 would have been that much lower, so he would have been saved in that respect. But even still, we'll see how the race continues. Archie Clifford Roberts still 7.5 seconds behind Regan Mitchell. A little bit of a gain over the last few laps, but not enough to overhaul that in the remaining under 40 minutes now. 7.7 has gone up again. I think Clifford Roberts, he's not doing anything silly. He's not pushing too hard or overdriving to try and close that gap down. He doesn't need to. There's no point for him to do that. I think he's just going to just turn the laps, basically, do what he needs to do and not overdrive the car.
Absolutely, and just a point on Steve Haley in 3rd as well. He's lapping around about half a second faster than both of them in front of him. So he's just, that gap is coming down to Archie, but again, that's sort of 16.5 seconds back. So it's a safe enough gap for Archie just to relax his pace and drive for the championship and bring it home in 2nd place. I'm not sure Steve can, in 37 minutes and 45 seconds, can make up a 16.5 second gap. Not against someone of Archie Clifford Roberts' talent.
No, indeed. You're absolutely right there. Also, as a fun fact, Jordan Ruddock is still the fastest lap holder, even though he left the race some time ago. Your prediction of that's not being beaten is still remaining true.
And Rich Smith up to a genuine 7th place as well. Another prediction. Yeah. It's an evening of the Proudly Productions predictions.
Trademark that one. That's a great. That's a great name for you there.
Trademark that one and say it as fast as you can repeatedly.
No, I'm struggling with the things that I need to say.
Yeah, Rich Smith doing an awesome job in the Lexus, the only Lexus in the field. It has been said that these cars are very good in ACC in the wet, so he's making the most of it. But Rich is a quick driver when he gets the opportunity to stay out of trouble and show us what he can do, and that's what he's doing this evening. Because don't forget, he was spun on the first lap on the start-finish straight by a little tap from the rear end. So he's recovered from what would have been pretty much dead last 20th place up to a genuine 7th place at the moment.
I think it was from the person that's directly behind him.
I wasn't going to mention any names until the stewards had had a look at it. But,
well, technically, I didn't mention a name. I just pointed at the person. But I think there was those. I'd say those were the two involved in the incident. I wasn't apportioning blame as to who was at fault. Just those were the two in it.
I believe obviously James Hartnell, he's clear on pit stop heel jumping, as we've just seen.
There it is.
Producer Mike, as we now see the said Audi give it the said Lexus a little tap and an assist into the barrier. But
considering that he hit the headbutt of the wall, got nudged by the McLaren, it looked like, and he's still in 7th. I mean, he's either just not repaired the damage, or has had an amazing recovery drive. I don't recall seeing him in the pits for huge amounts of time, so he's probably still driving with a wounded Lexus. That's an incredible drive.
Yeah, and to be honest, in these conditions, you're probably not going to gain enough lap time by repairing compared to the time it will take to repair the damage, if you can decipher my saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
win back's the time you lose in the pit.
Absolutely. So you put that much better than I did. So he's, I guess he's going to drive with the wounded car, and he's putting the lap times in. He's up to 7th place, albeit I think James Hartnell will pass him. So he's maybe in a sort of a relative 8th place in real time when everything shakes out. But it's still a fantastic drive considering, like we saw there, he was dead last.
Someone's on the move. That's Mr. Clifford Roberts again. He's closed in another 4/10 on Regan Mitchell. He's taken a fair chunk out of that lead. Speaking of,
just a recap.
Oh, that was when he lost the lead.
Yeah, that's how Regan Mitchell came to take the lead from Archie. It was a very uncharacteristic mistake from Archie Clifford Roberts, and that looked like Chris Pinchbeck behind Rich Smith, taking a very, very wide line through one of the corners.
Yeah, his car's too bright. He can't hide that. He doesn't camouflage with anything. Well, not here anyway. So I'm pretty sure that was indeed Chris Pitchback going for an exploratory wander. When we looked at that replay of when Clifford Roberts lost the lead, that green, what keeps making me think is a tennis ball on the apex of turn 3, has been there for so long. I don't know whether it's still there now. Hopefully we'll see it at some point. But that bollard has been there from pretty much the race start. And look at the gap now back to Chris Pinchback. Can't even see him in that shot. There we go, 5.1 seconds. So it was Chris going for a bit of an explore. He lost about 2.3 on that one from Rich Smith. But fair play to Rich, doing very, very well. That was a 2:02.4, which again with damage is a pretty impressive lap.
Yeah, and it's what's become apparent. Obviously, we're an hour and a half into the race now. Last 33 minutes to go. When I was watching the guys practice before qualifying, that was on a dry track, and the guys that were putting in the quick times, your Archie Clifford Roberts, your Regan Mitchell, your Steve Haley, your Dave Hedges, but the guys that are further down also were your Chris Pinchbecks, your Chris Crossmans, your James Hartnells. They were up there challenging. I believe actually in the final practice before qualifying, James Hartnell was second fastest, only behind Archie Clifford Roberts. So it just goes to show what these wet conditions can do and how much they shake the field up. And if your setup, if you can't adjust it, if you haven't got a wet setup and you're trying just to adjust on the fly with the dry setup, or even run with the dry setup with a set of wet tyres on, it just doesn't always work out for you. And it just goes to show that some of the drivers are just maybe a little bit better prepared for these conditions. And the changing circumstances, we see Rich out, this brave right out on the painted stuff there, that we've seen a couple of Audis come to grief on that.
We have indeed, and there's still personal best being set as we jump to our race leader Regan Mitchell, he's losing time, or has been losing time, to Clifford Roberts for the last few laps, whether that's mistake based or back markers or what have you. Not entirely certain. I can't quite see who that is that Regan is hounding in on. He just saw the back of that shot. That was indeed Archie Clifford Roberts, so he can see the lead. There he is at the top of the picture there. So he can see the potential win with still enough time to close in that kind of gap, although that might help him. Regan Mitchell, he's just running over the bollards. But as I was saying a minute ago, we're still seeing personal best being set. Chris Crossman with a 2:02.6 at this stage of the race, and he's done his pit stops. We still haven't seen how the early pitters are going to shake up amongst those that still have to pit as well. So there's another factor that is likely to shake up the order a bit.
And we're seeing Regan getting very ragged at the moment, which is very uncharacteristic. I mean, the last sort of 2 or 3 corners there, out of the last 4 or 5, he's run pretty wide in a few of them, and just showing us that he's I won't say succumbing to the pressure, but he's obviously responding to the fact that Archie's closing that gap and he's trying a little bit harder. But on the note of Chris Crossman's lap time, that's a massive improvement for him, because he was sort of in the high 203s, 204s and even 205s. So if he can get that Porsche going into the 202s, 202.5s, it's not too late for him to be challenging a little bit further up in that top 10, because he has no more pit stops to make. He's going to jump up that leaderboard quite considerably, I would imagine, when it all shakes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Another 3/10 gain from Clifford Roberts there. So he's whittling away that gap. It's now 6 seconds. And again, the pit stops, we saw how that shook up the field before, particularly the gap between Mitchell and Clifford Roberts. So I'm fully expecting it to do the same again as we jump on board with the aforementioned Chris Crossman. He's very much on his own there on the back of the field. I cannot tell who that is ahead of him. He won't be getting anything from the slipstream or what have you from that range anyway. I don't think it's Degala. Oh, it is Degala, I beg your pardon. So he's got 12th directly in his view, which, I mean, if nothing else, he'll inherit through pit stops. So, but even still, that still gives you that little bit of a, oh, there's the next position. That little bit of incentive just to, not settle for where you are, essentially. But again, got to be careful. Don't want to overdrive it.
Yeah, and that's just showing as well, if you look at the timing differences, the gaps, he's looking as if he's about 15 seconds off Hartnell, who's in 11th at the moment. And again, Hartnell's cleared all his pit stops, so that's a real-time gap of about 15 seconds from Crossman to Hartnell. But both of those two guys, as we know, James Hartnell is running roughly probably around about 6th place at the moment. He was challenging Ranjiv Kalsi before they came together after Ranj exited the pits. So yeah, James Hartnell will be 6th, 7th, and Crossman, I would imagine, will probably filter into 8th place maybe as we see Degala enter the pits, and Hobart with a drive-through with what I would imagine is 4 track limits.
Oh dear. So I wouldn't be surprised if we now start to see that drive-through penalty start to become a little more common. And again, you said this at the top of the show, is this is when the fatigue and what have you starts to really kick in. Oh my goodness. Clifford Roberts is charging. He's just got back into the 201s. That's the first 201 we've seen for absolutely ages. And he was only, what was he, 6,000, I beg your pardon, of a second from his personal best of the race. So I think Clifford Roberts has not given up on the lead yet.
No, absolutely. I mean, Archie won't give up on anything. As we say, he's got the championship in the bag. His nearest rival, James Hartnell's down in 11th, so he's got nothing to fear whatsoever. He just got to bring the car home. So he's going to push. Is he going to push at 10/10ths? Maybe not, but he's going to push hard enough. He's got a visual gap on the back straight now, so that's going to inspire him on a little bit harder if he can visually see the gap. He's going to maybe close it down a little bit, but he's certainly pushing. The gap in front's coming down. The gap behind to Haley's gone back up to around about the 20 seconds mark. So yeah, he's in sort of in the middle, as it were, but he's closing that gap definitely.
We are looking at Dave Hedges. The car already ahead of him is not Stephen Hady. As Stephen Hady's 15 odd seconds down the road, or was at the last time check. So I can't tell who that is that's already ahead. of the 88 Audi at the moment. It's a solid effort from Dave Hedges. He's had his ups and downs in this race, but a solid 4th position at the moment. Still 1 pit stop to serve as Peter Hobart has come in to save it. That's Wiggin. That's Reese Wiggin in the McLaren, as directly ahead of
the only McLaren on the track this evening. So yeah, it's going to a replay now as looking at Haley, I believe. Yeah,
that's coming into turn 10. So you're going to go for a bit of an explore, perhaps. Yeah,
very wide. As you were saying, as you were pointing out, as I pointed out as well earlier on, they are going to be now looking at these track limits. There's going to be quite a few guys. It'd be interesting when they come in for the driver interviews at the end of the race to see how many of them have had 3 warnings and were on that waiting for that last one, leading to a drive-through, as it were. So it'll be very, very interesting as we see Hedges trying to put a lap on Wiggins, and just maybe not quite as easy as he might have liked it to be.
No, but again, Reese Wiggins can't vanish, in fairness. So, I mean, Reese stayed to, well, when we caught up with him, he was very much on the outside of the track. So, he wasn't blocking or anything, but I think it was just unlucky timing for when Dave caught up with him.
Yeah.
Through nonetheless, and on he goes to continue on his merry way. Hobart has served his drive-through penalty. Back up track where I've lost him. Where is he?
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, Regan Mitchell, Clifford Roberts, they lapped within a tenth of each other in the last lap, and advantage Roberts he was a tenth faster than Mitchell. So on the last lap, there was no real change in that gap. Alex Goldsmith, thank you, buddy. Good comm, chaps. Nice to spectate for a change. I bet it is. Feet up, glass of the old red stuff, and just enjoy.
I said just a moment ago that I'd lost Peter Hobart from the list, and he's just put in chat as to why. Sadly, the spring in the brake pedal broke somewhere and had to retire the car. Yeah, being unable to brake would be a definite cause of track limit issues. So that's a bit of a shame.
I think this race this evening, Chris, is the biggest. We've had the most retirements from this race out of any race of the season, to be honest.
And it's the first one I've appeared on. Now, draw your own conclusions from that. And I'm glad we get the Goldsmith Gold Star. So that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely, yeah. The voice of Simsport, that means a lot.
As we look at Dean Riley on the back of Ranjiv Kalsi. That's about there, about 1.8. Last time around, Ranjiv he's whether his car is heavy at the moment, his lap times have been in the 204s, where he's been regularly in the low 203s previously, but then I would suspect the car was probably quite a bit lighter. So Dean Riley is closing in on him. He's going to threaten that 5th spot before too long. Last time around, there's again another 4/10 in Clifford Roberts' possession. So that gap now just over 5 seconds.
Yeah, and we're on board with Riley, and is that Kelsey just in front of him? So he's closed that gap right up on Kelsey in 5th, and we're getting to the point now where some of the top 9 that are yet to make their pit stops, their final one, will do so. With 23 minutes left on the clock, some of them will go in there to clear that final pit stop and race to the flag.
Through the exhaust pipe of Ranjiv Kelsey, indeed. It's a lovely noise from that Ferrari, and that's probably the best place to listen to it, right near the exhaust pipe. But that is the view back to Dean Riley. That sky livery Ferrari is getting larger and larger and larger in Kelsey's mirrors, I think. So Kelsey could just choose to let Dean Riley go. You know realistically who you're in a battle with, but even if he does, that's still a very, very strong performance from Ranjiv Kelsey.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm just looking at his lap times, and he's been so consistent, but his last lap was a 2:04.2, so I'm just wondering if he had any incident anywhere or any little issues, because it's unusual for him not to be putting in his 2:03s that we've seen him do lap after lap previously.
Very true.
Dean Riley's last lap was a 2:02.9, so obviously hence that's why he's making that ground up on him. As we see,
a wild Jaguar appears.
I was going to say, he's just put a lap on one of the Jaguars and just made that look very easy. We saw a nice spit of flames there that frightened the Jaguar off the track.
Almost like he shot it, which would also cause a spit of flame. So I think what the Jaguar was trying to do is either going to be Parker or Pixley. Not sure which one that is. I suspect he's just trying to get out of the way, and then he's realised Dean Riley's not far behind. I don't think that may have cost Dean a little bit of time. He's fallen back a bit. I don't think it would have cost him too much. But yeah, Kelsey caught that Jaguar the perfect time. That just the Jaguar stayed on the inside of turn 10, and the Ferrari was able to breeze past it. So very well timed there. And again, I keep coming back to that gap up front. It seems to stabling at the low 5 seconds to 5.1. It was 5.3, now 5.2. So it's kind of stabilizing now. 21 and a half minutes to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mitchell's responding to Clifford Roberts. Clifford Roberts obviously thinking about the championship, not wanting to do anything silly. So he's just doing what he needs to do. But I think Regan's got something left in the tank as well, because these guys are both not quite lapping as quick as they were in the first sort of first opening laps of the race. They've settled down to a pace as we're following Regan down. It looks like he's just put a lap on Chris Crossman, who's currently in 11th place. But yeah, I think Regan's got it in the bag, and 21 minutes to go. I think Regan, he'll bring this home in first place, and he'll get the job done.
As long as he doesn't, just lapse concentration, it's very easy to do. If you kind of assume that the status quo has been met, you can just take your eye off the ball at the crucial moment. There is Archie Clifford Roberts at the top of the shot. It's come down again, that gap. It's come down by 3/10 from the last time check. The overall lap was only a 10th different, or 10th and a half different. Again, in Clifford Roberts' favour, he's still coming down. So Regan Mitchell, if like you say, Steve, he's got a bit more in the tank, he's going to have to put it out fairly soon. As at that rate, I reckon Clifford Roberts could well challenge for the lead before the checkered flag falls.
Yeah, and in the chat, Anthony Mitchell, come on Regan, lad, you can hang on to this. So he's getting a bit of support in the chat as well. He's getting some support from the commentary box, because it'd be nice to see Regan take this win tonight. It'd be well deserved. He's driven hard, he's driven sensibly, and he's just put a measured performance in so far. So it'd be fantastic to see him on the top spot of the podium, and to see if we can get him to break into a bit of excitement in the commentary booth later on.
Absolutely, as we are on board with James Hartnell as he is chasing after Jeffrey Wolf. So that's not a bad performance from Jeffrey. That was a very good one from James Hartnell as well. Also bearing in mind that he is one of the 6 drivers that have done both stops. So he's up to 10th position. So he's going to gain quite a bit when the last pit stops are done. But you can assume the last pit stops are going to be pretty short. Very quick splash and dash, if anything at all. I
was just going to say the pressure on these guys now, especially Regan, is going to be that pit stop, because for those that aren't familiar with the pit stops in ACC, obviously disregard the entry exit on the pit limiter, but the stationary time, I mean, if they're doing a splash and dash, it depends obviously how much fuel they're taking, but literally a couple of litres takes 2-3 seconds to put in of stationary time. But that is only if you park it exactly in the box and get your engine switched off quick enough, because if you don't, if you overshoot your box, stop slightly too early, the pit stop will not commence until your pit crew push you back into position, which can add a second or more to your pit stop time. And when you've got someone like Archie closing in, who's now only 4.2 back, an extra second in the pit stop could make the difference for Regan Mitchell.
Yeah, lap time difference 6/10 to Archie Clifford Roberts that time around. As we see Dean Riley's close back in on Ranjiv Kalsi. That's a battle for 5th position, and that's a genuine battle as well. Both of them have one pit stop to serve, as you can see, with the number 1 in the orange marker next to their name. So, that looks like the Dean was going to sail off then at turn 12, but manages to keep it on the road. Yes, that's a great scrap. But yeah, exactly like you say, just one little mistake can be very, very costly. And judging by the lap times alone, Clifford Roberts has not given up on the potential of the race win. So we'll see if Regan Mitchell has got anything to defend against. Stephen Haley, 25 seconds back. He needs, the top 2 to come together, really, to really start to put a challenge on for anything further at the podium. But it'll be a podium nonetheless. Dave Hedges some distance down the road from Stephen Haley at the moment. So this is the closest battle we've got as far as positions are concerned, I believe, between Kelsey and Riley. And I'd highly doubt that Ranjiv Kelsey's just going to let Dean Riley dance past him. Ranjiv back into the 203s was a high. It was a 203.9 last time, a 203.6 from Dean Riley. We'll see what he's got.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously it's a straight fight. It's two Ferraris, both need to do one more pit stop, so it's just a driver battle. Is this one to see what they can do? And it'd be interesting down the long straight now to see if the Ferrari on a Ferrari, see what that slipstream's really worth.
Yeah, well, we've seen how powerful it is for others in the past, and it looks like both of them had a fairly decent exit from turn 7. That's the nose view from Dean Riley. He's not really, unless he absolutely banzais into turn 10, which he knows better than to do that. So
again, I think when the drivers are doing that, they're just trying to encourage that driver in front to take a more defensive line, which obviously is the slower line, but Ranjiv wasn't being sucked into that little trick. He maintained his line, drove his line, and it drove the fastest line and stayed in front.
He did, but he dived straight for the apex of turn 11, so he is feeling the real need to defend now. He's a little deep there, but manages to keep that going through 12. Yeah, he's really feeling the pressure now. Dean Riley is doing exactly what he needs to do to pile the pressure on, but we'll see how well Kelsey can defend. We've seen how well he can sort of put the moves on. Again, he went for a defensive line through that final turn. Dean Riley's really got the momentum to challenge for that 5th spot, so this should be fascinating.
Yeah, and James Hartnell up into 9th place now with no pit stops left to do, as we know he completed his pit stops earlier. He's 19 seconds behind Chris Pinchbeck in 8th, who has got a pit stop to make, who is behind Rich Smith, who has also got a pit stop to complete yet. So James Hartnell, I'm just trying to work out roughly where he's going to come into this, and he will be up there where his teammate is Dean Riley and Kelsey potentially, because Kelsey's been lapping a little bit slower, as we've been saying, and Hartnell's still doing mid 203s, so there's not a lot of difference in the times, albeit Hartnell just maybe a few tenths faster here and there. So it'd be interesting to see if Hartnell does come, gets in front of Kelsey in Kelsey's last pit stop.
Yeah, there's still positions to decide the final 15 minutes now of this 2-hour race here at Paul Ricard, and wow, look how early that Kelsey went for the defensive line. There's cone death going on. Oh no, Dean, that's not what you wanted to do. The cone bit you back, it would seem.
Absolutely, seemed to throw him across the track there. That could have been game changing. That could have been the end of Dean Riley's race at that sort of speed. Absolutely flat out, hit the curb, shot to the stage left, and nearly exited.
Very much so.
Yeah, but he managed to hang on to it. Although he's lost some time, he just needs to regroup now and say lost time. He's 0.4 of a second behind Ranch, so he's not exactly lost touch with him. But again, he just seems to be able to take some tighter lines than Kelsey in front of him. It's Ranjiv doing a sterling job, as we've said many times tonight so far. He's in a genuine sort of 5th, 6th place in this field this evening, and he's still putting reasonable lap times in, and he's still driving very, very well under pressure from Dean Riley, who is no slouch in that Ferrari behind him. No, certainly not. Yeah, the revenge of the cone made the cone strike back, and it certainly did on Dean Riley, but it hasn't cost him an awful lot. Someone coming out of the pit, I wonder, was that Crossman? I'm not sure. It was coming out of the pit. It was coming out of the last corner, wasn't it? Dave Hedges has gone into the pits.
No, I saw someone in the pit lanes. I was trying to identify who it was, and it's the number 88 Audi of Dave Hedges. But wow, again, Riley's just reeled in. That is not 7/10 of a second by any stretch. That's getting very, very close.
And we could just see what 9 seconds look like. Oh, Pinchbeck Hedges there. Wow, not much room left for Hedges there. He was occupying the right-hand side of the track as tight and personal as he could do as Pinchbeck went through at full speed.
Well, it was well observed by both of them, but yeah, it was an unusual line that Dave Hedges had to go on there, but it was probably the safer part of better part of valor to do it that way than be ploughed into by the Audi. It was indeed Pinchbeck. So, but that whilst his fourth position, the top 7 still have to serve their final pit stop. Again, we'd look at Dean Riley. Is he going to have a go? He's not going to have a go from that far back. He's backed out of that one. So again, still piling the pressure on. Kelsey doing exactly what he needs to do to make his Ferrari as wide as possible. And the gap up front now down to 4.1, although it's just gone up a little bit as Stephen Haley has brought his car in for his final stop. I wonder if is that going to bring him out? No, it's not going to bring him out with this gap. I think this fight's a little bit too far down the road for Stephen Haley to be caught up in it, but that would be interesting if he did.
It depends, yeah. Obviously, I mean, I'm guessing it's just going to be a splash and dash stop. So, yeah, as we were saying, maybe a 2-3 second stationary time in the pit lane plus entry-exit times. But he might be somewhere near them, you know. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. He's still in the pits, and there, indeed, as Dean Riley's going in the pits as well, and Kelsey will, I believe, overtake Haley. Not quite. Yeah, he's just exited, and Ranjiv's just catching him now into the braking zone. So that's useful for Steve Haley to have avoided that, not because anything detrimental towards Ranj, but Ranj could have defended that position quite hard and cost Haley some time. But yeah, Haley's chucking that Audi around sideways, straight out of the pits and onto the painted stuff, and just getting it twitching all over. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, you want to turn right and you're steering left. That's commitment.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's not fast, I'm afraid, to do it that way. It's entertaining from our perspective. It is not the way to the top of the lap borders. Pinchbeck brings his car in. Just 4 drivers now to race the pit lane for the final time. Our top 2, Mitchell and Clifford Roberts. Now the gap down to 3.6 seconds. Bearing in mind, it was well over double that after the first pit stop. So that gap has just been whittled away. 0.6 of a second near enough gained by the 96 car of Archie Clifford Roberts on the last lap alone. So he's pressing on. I think it was either traffic or a mistake from Regan Mitchell. Just 10 minutes to go before the checkered flag falls on this season.
I was just going to say 10 minutes of season 3 remain. Started off somewhere around June at Nurburgring 20 weeks ago with Alex doing solo commentary for an hour and a half of the Nurburgring, and now culminating at Paul Ricard with a 2-hour race and 9 minutes 30 seconds left. The drivers have put on some fantastic shows throughout the season. We've had some great battles. We've had different race winners. We've had mixed podiums of very varied drivers. We've run 30-minute sprint races. We've run 1-hour races, 90-minute races. We see Ranjiv Kelsey entering the pits. We've run 2-hour races with varying pit stop rules. The guys, they can't settle into one strategy. We've really thrown different types of racing at them. And, the man that's risen to the top at the moment is Archie Clifford Roberts regarding the championship. And on this occasion, for the 2-hour race at Paul Ricard, the man that's on top is Regan Mitchell. 3.5 seconds to the good. Archie Clifford Roberts is maybe looking to change that in the last 8.5 minutes or so. Both of them are going to have to pit. When will that be? Well, it's going to have to be in the next 8.5 minutes. So let's keep our eyes peeled and see who blinks first.
Oh wow, Dean Riley's just blasted past Ranjiv Kelsey. Of course, we were watching that battle unfold, but now the Sky Livery Ferrari, the number 2, is now up into 6th spot ahead of Ranjiv Kelsey. And actually, James Hartnell has just overtaken Kelsey as well, according to the timing screen. That'll update on the tower very, very shortly. There is James Hartnell. You just saw Ranjiv Kelsey at the back of the shot. Hopefully on the longer one, you'll see what I mean. There he is. There is Ranjiv Kelsey now in 8th spot. So a valiant effort. You can't take that away from him. Did lead for a period of time, but now the pit stops have mostly shaken down. There might still be a position or two up for grabs, or possibly one, depending on how it goes for Rich Smith when he brings his car in for the final time. But again, fair play to Ranjiv Kelsey. James Hartnell as well, a real strong effort there. The start, mid-phase of the race didn't quite go his way, but he certainly is making up for it. Here is Regan Mitchell now. That gap less than 3 seconds, as Regan's got a Jaguar ahead of him. So it's either Pixley or Parker. tell which. I didn't see a number on that one, so I'm not sure which of the two Jags is directly ahead of him. He'll be picking up a bit of slipstream, but that blue Audi has been getting bigger and bigger, very slightly lap on lap in Regan's mirrors. And like you said earlier, Steve, some of the latter laps have been a little bit more ragged than others. So it is Richard Pixley that is directly ahead of race leader Regan Mitchell. Is Regan going to try and pit now rather than get held up by the back marker? I would be opting to do exactly that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Clifford Roberts just follows him in. Whenever you go, I'll go as well, kind of idea. So we will see.
Yeah, because I'm going to say there's nothing to be gained by staying out because he's not like he's being held up. He's not going to perform the undercut like Hartnell and Riley have on Kelsey. As we see Regan Mitchell going into the pits and
call it.
Yeah, Roberts does as well. Both of them do. Yeah. Held my breath just to see what happened, and yet they both jumped in the pits. So let's see who exits the pits first. This is going to be very, very close. It's all going to be about getting into that pit box. Absolutely bang on. It's also going to be about who's taking more fuel than the other, or are they just both putting literally a litre or two in? That's what I would be expecting at this late stage with just 6 minutes to go. As Roberts just goes past Mitchell in the pit lane. But is Mitchell going to get out first? This is tense. This is exciting.
I didn't see either of them go backwards. So Clifford Roberts, a short fuel, has come out ahead of Regan Mitchell. So he's gained that 3-ish seconds that was there, plus probably a second and a half. But has he got the fuel right? That's going to be the biggest question.
Yeah, he'll have the fuel right. He'll have just been running it closer, and I think Regan Mitchell's maybe taken a litre or two more than him. Did he hit the pit box bang on right? Did it pause before it put the fuel in because he wasn't positioned quite right? Only we'll find out maybe in the interview at the end of the race. But yeah, that's a fantastic pit stop from Roberts. A little bit, massively disappointing from Mitchell, who's led the majority of this race, it has to be said. And he's completed a fantastic drive. Just very, very unlucky there. And as I said, 2.4 seconds down now. That's a lead that Archie Clifford Roberts is not going to give up now at this point. I don't believe he's snatched it in the last 5 minutes in the pit stop. Didn't even have to pass him on the track. He's passed him in the pits. So great driving from both drivers, to be fair, but great strategy from Archie.
Yeah, brilliantly done. You can't fault the championship leader, or the champion-elect, really, I think we can call him at this point, at all. That's been an absolutely superb drive. Regan Mitchell doing everything he possibly could, but undoing itself in the final moments. There is Kelsey, and that coming out of the pits is Rich Smith. So Rich Smith coming down to 8th position now, so that's going to be 7th for Roger Kelsey. He's, in fairness, he's still chasing James Hartnell. Last time, James did a 2:05 last time, so I don't know whether James Hartnell's made a mistake somewhere, because we don't usually see James in the 2:05 kind of region. So he's perhaps had a bit of a half spin somewhere, but that's going to put Kelsey right on his case.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Kelsey's still only lapping in the 2:04.3s, and I think mistakes to one side, Hartnell's definitely banging in the 2:03s. So I think it's going to take something from Ranjiv to close that gap down, let alone put a pass on Hartnell, although never say never. Ranj won't give up. He will try his hardest, and he needs to keep trying, because Rich Smith is showing there's only 3 seconds back, and you can see in there in the shot in that Lexus, and that Lexus has proved to be pretty powerful this evening. It's certainly in the hands of Rich Smith. It's clawed a lot of positions back, and it's done an awful lot of overtaking.
That it has. So that battle isn't done. 3 minutes remain until the checkered flag falls, and that gap up front is now swinging back towards Regan Mitchell's momentum. That's now down to 1.7. There's a second gone, or over half a second has gone already. That lead battle might not be resolved yet. Has Regan Mitchell just got that little bit extra, or is Clifford Roberts having to just back off a bit to save a bit of fuel? On board with 8th place Rich Smith. He's 2.8 behind Kelsey, who is in turn, 1.5 behind James Hartnell, who is getting back into the rhythm. So
be interested just to see the lap times now as they come onto the start-finish straight, just to see how much time Rich Smith is taking out of Ranjiv Kelsey, because he is definitely lapping quicker.
Let's see. So Kelsey was a 2:04.7. Rich Smith, well, that was an outlap for him.
It was an outlap, so. But and up ahead, the gap's back up to 1.9 for Roberts and Mitchell, so it's sort of pretty much status quo, to be fair. Maybe it's just certain areas of the track where the Mercedes is a little bit stronger than the Audi that it's showing a tighter relative. But yeah, certainly, I mean, Regan won't have given up. He'd certainly be pushing. Steve Haley in 3rd place, Dave Hedges 4th, Dean Riley 5th, James Hartnell 6th, Kelsey 7th, Smith 8th, Crossman 9th, Pinchbeck 10th, Jeffrey Wolf in 11th, Dugala in 12th, Pixley 13th, Parker 14th, Wiggin at 15th, and Bowman down in 16th. Rounding out the finishers this evening so far with 1.5 minutes to go. Everybody's completed their mandatory pit stops. It's now just 1 minute and 20 seconds to go till we get to the checkered flag of Season 3 GT3 with Simsport Racing.
What a race this has been. Even with a slightly smaller grid on a track like Paul Ricard, it hasn't disappointed whatsoever. The drivers putting on an amazing show. It has been a pure delight to commentate on. We hope those of you watching, have enjoyed it as much as we have. It's less than a minute to go then. If we can check in on where our leaders are relative to where the start-finish line. There is Cliff Roberts just crossing the line, I think. Or is he on the back straight? He's on the back straight. So is he going to beat the flag from there? Possibly no, he won't beat the flag from there. So this should be the final lap, if I've got my maths right.
Absolutely, and Regan, how tantalising is that? He's led for so long to be overtaken in the pits, and then Regan can just see, look how hard he's pushing in the background. He's really throwing that Mercedes into the corners and caution to the wind almost. I mean, he's got a massive lead on Haley in 3rd place, so why not? He's got nothing to really lose now, I think, at this stage in the race. Just push as hard as you can, but it's looking like Roberts has got this in the bag. And Gene Pinchbeck says, great job, Steve, and all. We'll see you next season. Well, thank you for following and watching, Gene. Been a pleasure. And the next season won't be too far away.
Checker flag is out, awaiting our drivers, and there they are coming through the final turn. Your winner for this final round of Season 3 is going to be the Audi of Archie Clifford Roberts. Regan Mitchell chases him home in the Mercedes for 2nd place, and a very distant but still deserved 3rd position is going to be the number 24 of Stephen Haley. But what a great effort from our top 2. Brilliant. So what a great effort from all of our surviving drivers. They've done very, very well as Stephen Haley just wiggles his way past Jeremy Wolf's car, past the last few turns, and he's going to bring the Audi home for the final podium spot. And again, a great race from him. Well done to Stephen Haley, and still some way back is Dave Hedges there. He is just coming through the last 3 turns. And again, by this point, you're just willing your car to get there that little bit quicker. He's wanted all over and done with. So again, great effort from our drivers.
Yeah, absolutely awesome racing, and thank you to everybody who's watched so far. I mean, stay tuned, because we're hoping to bring you some interviews with certainly the top 3 drivers at least, and it was an open invite in the drivers chat room when I left before the race to say if anyone wants to have a chat about the season, whatever, just jump in the interview room. So we'll see who we've got, and we'll see what chat there is to be had after the race. But thank you very much for watching all through the season. I've seen the same names pop up in chat, so we really appreciate it. Obviously, for anyone new, if you are new to Simsport, please click the subscribe button, like the videos if you like them, also click that notification bell, and more importantly, if you fancy having a go on the track, join the community, and you'll find all the information at the website www.simsport-racing.com, and we will welcome you into the community and support you the best we can to get you on track and get you as quick as we can.
Absolutely. So great effort from our racers. Well done to everybody taking part. Yeah, what a race this has been. It's like I say, it's been Great fun to be part of the commentary team. And well done to everybody behind the scenes as well. All the moderators, all the stewarding that goes on behind the scenes of the broadcast as well. I suppose we have fun shouting down the microphone. We really couldn't do it without everybody in the background as well, the unsung heroes. So thank you very much to them.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's not forget the voice of Simsport, Alex Goldsmith. Thank you very much, buddy, for helping us to make this happen, along with Mike Yao at Simply Race. You two guys were with us from the start, and Alex is the official voice of Simsport, so we thought we'll get you back in the commentary box very soon for the next GT4 Championship, which is getting lined up first, and then the announcement that's to make very soon regarding the GT3s. So yeah, thank you very much to those two guys, especially who've brought the racing to life with the broadcasts.
Amen to that. So stick with us. We'll hopefully get some drivers in to have a chat with us so we can get their insight on how their races went and how the season has gone. But what a race we have had.
Yeah, well, I'm going to, and if you'd like to join me, Chris, I think we should go down into the interview room, because I believe we've got Archie Clifford Roberts in there now. So we will talk to the top man, the top driver, first of all.
Excellent.
Good evening, Archie. Well done, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, if I can just say, first of all, mate, that absolutely awesome driving tonight from everybody involved at the front of the field. Before we even get to the championship, that race this evening was absolutely epic, from qualifying to race. You were amazing, mate. It was absolutely awesome. Well done, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a gut feeling that it was going to rain. I went offline early on in the day to do some rain practice, and it sort of paid off, but Regan was absolutely immense in the rain in that Merc of his. It was so hard to catch up with him. I really thought he was going to win, if I'm honest. I was happy to sit in second. But no, well done to him, and well done to, I think it was Haley that got third place.
It was indeed, but yeah, I mean, there was some really good battles throughout the field, and even the likes of Ranjiv Kelty leading the race for a while and sort of running for quite considerable time in 6th, 7th place, you know, so the rain is a great leveller, and it certainly opens up opportunities for drivers maybe sometimes that aren't always at the sharp end. But just back to your race, when you had that bit of a half spin, Regan went past it, at that point did you think, you know what, I'll just bring this home in second? Or, I mean, I know you personally, I don't really think that was your attitude, but was there any point when you thought that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the first thing I thought when I spun was, I hope that's not on the stream.
Several times, mate, we have that replay function.
Oh, great, cheers. No, at that point I saw that I was still in second, still ahead of Hartnell. That was my main aim, just to be ahead of Hartnell. I was happy to sit in second. But I won't lie, I was a bit annoyed, and I did want to push for first place as soon as I saw that I was cutting the gap. But no, I'm super happy with that. Really
yeah,
happy.
I mean, just right back to the beginning of the race when Haley was putting the pressure on you, it didn't look like you were going to have it easy at any point anyway, because Steve was putting an awful lot of pressure on you, and it was his own mistake that dropped him back out of contention and into the clutches of Jordan Ruddock early on.
Yeah, I saw. I think at one point he almost smashed into the back of my car. I think I might have broke earlier, or he broke late. I don't know, but everything was slow motion at that point. I was fearing for the championship.
Well, again, the replay worked both ways there. We watched that a couple of times, and you could see Steve had gone in quite hot on the brakes, and the move wasn't going to make sort of work, so he lifted off the brakes to steer to avoid hitting you, to be fair to him, and that's what cost him all the time, was the off-track bit. But you know, it was, like I say, the driving standards for the difficult conditions tonight, there's still been very close racing. It's been absolutely awesome to watch and commentate on.
Yeah, that's been awesome.
What? Just moving on to the championship, buddy. I mean, you've led from round 2. Round 1 wasn't a dominant win for you. You were sort of 3rd place, I believe, at Nurburgring.
I spun off.
You
in
did,
the
yes.
lead, and that,
You did.
I wasn't happy about that.
No, but then you had a great battle with Kev Critchley at Silverstone, and brought it home in the lead, and that put you into the championship lead.
Yeah,
you've never looked back since then. Is it? What's the secret, mate? How'd you become an alien?
just ask Kev Critchley.
Yeah, but you beat Kev Critchley, mate.
I had to get that in there. Sorry, Kev. No, to be honest, that Silverstone was the one that sort of. I'll be honest. I wasn't very motivated at Nurburgring. But having that battle with Kev at Silverstone sort of reignited that hunger to win more races, to get podiums again. And then, of course, we have Misano, the race afterwards, which is probably my favourite race of the season. Kev was on my chuff throughout the entirety of both 30-minute races. I think if he had stayed in the championship, it would have been a lot closer.
Just so you're aware, Kev's just put in the YouTube chat three emojis of aliens and equals arch. So that's clearly what Kev thinks of you, mate. And to be fair, it has been a pretty dominant season for you. Yes, it may have been closer. Yes, we've had some sort of fun-packed races, but we've had a few races where it's Archie qualifies on pole and more or less keeps his head down and runs away with it, because that is the standard that you drive at. That's the performances you can put in, week out, mate. And it's nothing can be taken away from you. You are a very talented, a very fast young man when it comes to racing. So it's well deserved as this championship, and I hope we see you back to defend it in the next season.
Thank you for commentating this entire season, giving up your driving time to commentate.
Yeah, well,
thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure, mate, because the racing has been intense. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Archie. Season 3 GT3 champion Archie Clifford Roberts. Well done, mate.
Cheers. See you.
So I think we now move on to, Regan Mitchell. What can we say, mate? I had you down for winning that. You did what you needed to do. You came across, half-turned Archie Clifford Roberts. You accepted his invitation to take the lead. You ran with it for most of the race, and it came down to a pit stop, buddy. So first of all, mate, I mean, I'm going to miss most of the race out and ask you what happened in the pit stop. Was it the fact that he just took less fuel, or did you miss your pit box? Was there an issue?
Yeah, basically, I had to take more fuel. At the start of the race, I assumed in the wet the car would use less fuel than in the dry, so I underfueled at the start, and paid for that later on. I had to go short on the first stint, which means long on the second set of wet tyres, which when the rain got heavy I didn't like that. That's how we caught up, and then I had to take what I assume was only 5 extra litres of fuel, but it cost a lot.
It cost you that 3-second lead you had, didn't it, going into the pits, which, I am genuinely gutted for you, mate. I was willing you home. I mean, when you watch the stream back, you will hear me. I was willing you home for that win, mate. Nothing against anybody on the grid there, but you deserved a win tonight for the sterling drive you put in there. I mean, when you came across, when you sort of got past Steve Haley when he made his mistake up behind Archie Clifford Roberts, did you think at that point you had the pace to put pressure on Archie? I mean, he sort of got a bit of a gap on you, or was it a case of, right, I'm just going to settle into my own pace now and run what I can, sort of thing?
Yeah, I never expected to be as fast or faster than Archie. I was just a bit lucky when he made his half spin, and then a few other mistakes once he was behind me. That was what kept me in the race the entire time. Actually, I was expecting to barely get in top 6 this race. In the dry I wasn't that fast, but the wet saved me.
It was a fantastic drive, mate, and as we've seen so many times this season, you are capable of very, very consistent drives, and I think you probably agree with me that I think your consistency has it's got better throughout the season. You've improved with this season as it's gone on. You've gelled with that Mercedes, and you are a man to watch. You potentially are. I think definitely going to be a man on the podium a lot more in the next season. Do you feel more confident in the car? Do you feel happier with the Mercedes?
Yeah, I do say basically after every race that I think every race I am better than the last. I just do hope that continues from now on.
Yeah, so do I, mate. And we'll have the GT4s and the GT3s running again very soon, as both seasons have finished now. But on tonight's performance, mate, absolutely awesome job and well done. And it was a pleasure to commentate on it.
Yeah, thanks, and congrats to Archie as well.
Yeah, thanks very much, Regan. So we move on now to our third place finisher, Stephen Haley. Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening, Steve.
How are you doing? And was that fun?
Loved it. Yeah. To be fair, I love the rain. I love driving in the rain. It's this sim. Every time I drive in the rain, it just amazes me more and more. Just fantastic.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance from all the drivers tonight. Understandably, some of the racing was really close. We knew the minute it started racing in qualifying that it was going to be a bit of a mixed up grid, and then when the rain was coming down on race day as well, it was like, right, okay, well, this is a bit of uncharted territory. Yes, we've got Archie up on pole position, but the mistakes may come. It's a 2-hour race. Concentration levels are going to be harder. You made an uncharacteristic mistake. Maybe was it a mistake? Your mistake behind Archie when he sort of seemed to run deep on the brakes, and you had to sort of get out of the brakes to avoid hitting him.
Yep. Yeah, that was totally on me. I did that about 3 or 4 times throughout the race. With the rain in that particular corner, the last thing you want to do is go full on the brakes. You see, you just kind of want to be ever so slightly feathering it and using the gears to bring it down more than anything else. But if you apply too much brakes, then you lock up. Once you've locked up, there's no steering and there's no slowing down, unfortunately. That could have been so much better. I mean, that could have been a really good a longer scrap, should I say, with Archie there.
Yeah, I think, I commented before you made that sort of little mistake there. You seemed to have the pace on Archie. You seemed a lot more settled through the corners than Archie was, and it almost looked like if you could get past him, you may have actually been able to put time in. But once you dropped back, you had a real humdinger of a battle with Jordan for a few laps as well. He kept you pretty honest and was putting you under pressure, and then obviously Regan as well. So you didn't exactly have a lonesome race for the first sort of 45 minutes or so, did you?
No, I would say the first half an hour, 45 minutes was pretty good. It was exciting, and it was, I don't think there was a lap without a battle part in it. But I think if I could have got past Archie, I may have done. I'm not quite sure. I did seem to have more cornering speed than Archie, but as soon as he got on the straight, he just pulled away, which you can't with Paul Ricard. That massive long straight, there's not a great deal that you can do about that, unfortunately.
No, absolutely not, mate. But overall, season 3, you've not had a terrible season. You took the Audi on. It wasn't your favourite car to pick. Obviously, it was a team decision. But you've made the best of it, and you've not done a bad job of it, has to be said. So, well done for season 3, mate. Well done for some fantastic races, and let's bring on season 4.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. And I look forward to hopefully speaking to you again in season 4. Cheers, guys.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
So there we have it, Chris. Season 3 is over. I'm not quite sure you can hear Chris at the minute. A couple of technical issues, but yeah.
My apologies. My
back,
apologies. I forgot to unmute. A very schoolboy error of me. Yeah, what a way we've seen the season now. What a great race we've had at Paul Ricard. Really, we couldn't have asked for more, could we? We had spins from the lead. We had thrills and spills throughout the field. We had drivers you wouldn't normally expect up the front and even leading the way. What more can you ask for?
Absolutely nothing, mate, and that is pretty much what the season's been about all the way through. We've not had a lot of rain, but we've had a lot of fantastic racing. We've had a lot of respect shown by the drivers with each other. When we set out in this journey for season 3, there was a lot of new drivers on the grid that had never raced together, and that's always a little bit difficult. But the drivers have come to know each other, and as even Regan Mitchell there, finished second this evening, but still improving. In his own words, when he finishes every race, he feels he's learnt a little bit more, and that's a fantastic attitude to take forward. And you'll find that that's the attitude of most of the drivers. They're all looking to learn. They're always looking to improve. And I mean, Archie Clifford Roberts has just been in a class of his own this season. He's certainly, I won't say improved overall, but he's just shown the others guys what the standard is and where they need to be to beat him. And it's I won't say it's a tall order, but they're going to have to bring their A game to season 4, definitely.
Absolutely, but even those that aren't necessarily at the top of the tree just yet, don't feel discouraged from getting involved. You'll have someone to race against that'll be of your level, but there's so much support available throughout the community. Hit up the website, www.simsport-racing.com. Get signed up, get involved. There's always room for the next upcoming star. On screen now is the next details that are penned in.
Yes, so we're going to open up sign up for our contributors, as explained earlier, for GT4 and for GT3 driver swap, which the first round will be, as you can see on your screen, the 8th of November. It will be for teams of 2 drivers in GT3 cars running fortnightly rounds on a Sunday evening at Suzuka, Spa, Bathurst and Monza. These will be 2.5-hour races, so it will be a case of very much a team event. We want to get as many cars on the grid as possible, so please, if you're not already a member of the Simsport community, look us up on the website and get signed up with us as soon as that sign up opens in Discord. And for those guys that are in the community, you will find the link on the Discord pages very, very soon. So we're really excited to announce that season along with the GT4 one that we announced last Wednesday night. That sign up will be opening up later on tonight, tomorrow morning as well. So yes, exciting times, great stuff to look forward to. And wow, Season 3 has been a blast. Like I say, we just want to say one last time thank you to Mikey out at Simply Race and Alex Goldschmidt for helping us bring the races to life on the streams. They've done an absolutely awesome job. Great feedback from the community regarding all of that. Thank you, Chris, for this evening, for stepping in and covering the voice of Simsport while he's on his European go-karting tour. But yeah, it's been absolutely awesome and it's been a blast. So thank you very much, and thank you for everyone for watching. So that signs out of all that's left for me to do is to sign out of Season 3 and look forward to seeing everybody in the GT4 and GT3 new seasons when they open up very, very soon. I've been Steve Proudley and I've been joined by Chris Buxton this evening. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all very, very soon.